Hello Internet, I'm HamsterBomb.
I'm Zach.
And this is HITBOX, the gaming podcast where we complain about the video game industry.
Back in my day.
Just kidding, we're not going to do that. Except the last two episodes kind of felt like complaints of awful things that are happening lately. And so instead we're going to go back in time again. We're going to talk about 2002, which ended up being, just from our research, one of the biggest years for Nintendo ever.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, this is huge. This is what I think we previously called their Holy Trinity on the Super Nintendo, all getting a new entry on the GameCube, and that's ignoring what we're going to be seeing with their Game Boy Advance later in this episode.
Yeah.
Nintendo was killing it this year.
Just a shame that not a lot of people bought as many GameCubes as they did PS2s and Xboxes.
Yeah, that's the real shame, because the software that we have here is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And, yeah, if we actually had this kind of luck, even on the Switch, which has comparable install base, yeah, to the PS2, it's close, which is saying a lot. The PS2 is still the top-selling video game console in history as of this recording. Switch is catching up. I don't know if they make a new version of the Switch that would count like backwards to, like when you count like the DS, you don't count the 3DS, but do you count other iterations like the DSi?
Nintendo does.
Exactly. So it gets hairy. You never really know. And of course there's PS2 Slims. Do you cut all those out of the PS2? So we kind of talked about how the numbers of all this doesn't really make any sense, but still it doesn't change the fact that not a lot of people bought GameCubes.
Nope.
I did. I loved it.
Me too.
I love this system.
Oh my God, yes.
Today we're going to start by talking about the GameCube and some great games on the GameCube. And notably, we would normally be playing on the GameCube, but okay, let's talk about the bad part of this first, just because we don't want to talk about any disappointing news. But of course, it seems every time, or at least every other episode we do a Hitbox, there is some horrible thing that some big company has done in the industry that is just completely moronic, and it's Nintendo this time. Last time it was Unity, but this time Nintendo has decided to update their policies on YouTube videos, proactively saying that if you upload or make any streaming content of any video game that has software or hardware that has been modified in any way, meaning hacks, ROMs, emulation, or basically anything, even if you're just using a capture card on a 3DS, that's modified hardware, and they have the right to issue a copyright strike and take not only your video down, but if you get 3 of those, your entire channel. By those rules, technically like half of the Hitbox episodes, if you watched the video version and not just listen to us on Spotify, we all should have like 25 or so copyright strikes by this point, just from this series alone. And that's absurd. So hopefully it's not going to be enforced like that. I have a feeling this is actually just a thing to try and stop people from making videos showing how to pirate software, how to steal things, how to hack into your modern consoles, how to do stuff that obviously Nintendo doesn't want their name on. And I understand that, but this is probably this is some overkill of what they're doing.
It's overcorrecting of the most draconian degree.
Yeah, big time. So,
but that's nothing new on Nintendo's part.
No, but fortunately, because I was going to say, in this episode, we would have been playing a game like Metroid Prime, which we were about to play for the GameCube.
Yep.
And it could have been several other games that we could have played, but we wanted to play this one because it's one that I can play without even paying attention to the screen. We're just letting it idle right now because this is actually my cell phone's ringtone, by the way.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'll turn this on and I will get confused when I hear this game turn on.
Did my game reset?
No, I think like someone's calling me.
Yeah.
But anyway, I love this game, and we will get into more of it. But luckily, we are getting around that weird Nintendo policy by showcasing the Metroid Prime Remaster, which came out this year.
Hey!
I believe we both played this to completion this year, right?
Yes. Yeah. I absolutely did.
It's so good.
Very good.
How about we touch on just like the remaster part in a bit?
Yeah,
we gotta talk about just what Metroid Prime is.
Yeah.
Because this is, for one, if you just look at the years in history as we were doing for these Hitbox episodes, how long has it been since we talked about Metroid?
Since 1994.
It has been a long time. And this is Retro Studios revitalizing this series, not only in terms of trying to bring it back from the dead, basically, but
Yeah.
try to translate it into a brand new medium with completely different hardware in a 3D space, which is literally cubing the possibilities of where things can be hidden in how Metroid works.
Yep.
Yeah, instead of, you drop more fall bombs and you can see one of the blocks turned pink or something, and you know that, or red, and you know you need to use missiles or super missiles or something to use it, to break it open. Now, literally anything in the room can be different. So the biggest aspect of the game for designing it that I think that they brilliantly designed to overcome this was they added many visors. Similar to how Samus had the X-ray scope previously, which kind of let her see through things in Super Metroid. In Metroid Prime, you start with the normal combat visor as well as the scan visor. And the scan visor allows you to switch over to a mode I'll show you in a bit. And you can not only just like interact with things, open some doors and puzzles, you can also scan objects and see this dense piece of rock is made of cordite. And cordite, if you translate that into the game, you go, oh, that's a super missile. I know I can break this. Or you see something else that says it's bendesium. And as soon as you get the power bombs, you go, oh, this says it breaks bendesium, and now I know I can go break anything that said bendesium. So it's making it more realistic, but it's also keeping that old video gamey Metroidness in a 3D space.
Yeah, because the thing I think that really helps it is that if you don't notice something when you're just in your normal combat visor and just looking around at everything, the scan mode actually will zero in a little reticle above something that is out of the ordinary that you might have missed, giving you that pretty good hint saying, hey, you might want to examine this. Hold down, the L button and examine it. And it really helps an awful lot, especially with 3D. At the time, I know I wasn't used to 3D.
No, neither was I. In the locking system, in fact, I might even want to switch our controls over to the GameCube controls for this very quickly. Just bam! I got it working. So, basically, the right stick, you would expect something like this. If it has to be done in a first-person perspective, you would expect that the right stick would be your camera movement, or your... Yeah, but instead, the left stick is moving you with tank controls. Right, and since you're moving with tank controls, you now have to hold down the R button in order to free aim up, and then you can hold L and lock onto something. You will probably feel it's a little weird at first until you do that opening puzzle right there, and then it clicks and it's simple. Because the game isn't designed to try and confuse you in terms of platforming. You're always going to be, for the most part, running straight and not trying to run away from something. If you're ever trying to strafe, there will be times for that, and you can lock onto it with the new targeting system.
Yeah, it's more of a way to try to like make it as easy for people who are newer to like first-person shooters of that degree than to confuse them, because it's like I wasn't really big into first-person shooters at the time, but I knew because of Metroid Fusion, I'm like, oh, it's a Metroid game. I want to play this, and so it's like, oh, this is interesting. But after a while, you get used to it, honestly.
You do. In fact, I got so used to it that even in the modern one, I don't want to jump ahead, but the remastered, since they have a twin stick option and many other control options, and they're very good to suit the way you want to play with the game, I just don't. Something about the way that beam combos switch in particular did not feel right to me. Because originally that was what your right stick did. You would actually flick it in one direction, similarly to how you would use the D-pad in order to choose which visor, and you would have access to all your beams and all your visors at the same time, because your beams do not stack in this game.
No, exactly. Yeah, because it would be like, what, up for power, down for ice, left for wave, and right for plasma.
Yeah, and you would need to be able to switch to them constantly to deal with different threats or different enemies that only take damage from certain types.
Especially in the late game,
Yeah, you absolutely need that.
Because the way they got around it with this, where the stick now moves your camera around, you had to hold down, what, X and the D-pad in order to be able to change it?
Yeah, I didn't like that at all.
It was a weird quirk, especially with the way the game was originally designed. I have no idea how you would have pulled that off properly on the GameCube either.
Yeah, you really couldn't. And the thing is, I'm glad that they were willing to experiment with that, because basically anything at the time that was using a first-person perspective and you were shooting in it, it was assumed you're copying Doom and you're doing a Doom clone. Everyone called it a Doom clone back then. And Metroid Prime, even calling it a first-person shooter today, seems to be completely missing the point of what the game actually is. This is Super Metroid, but it's in 3D.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, you can see I'm constantly going in and out of first-person. Retro Studios actually did not want this game to be completely in first-person at all. I think it was Miyamoto who insisted that they make it in first-person.
Sure.
Or the other way around. I'm not exactly positive on which way it went, but I know that there was some pushback on how they wanted this game to actually look in the end. And I'm really happy with the way that it plays. There's another thing I wanted to mention about the 3D aspect of the design of this before we carry on too much. So one big thing about the game that I was nervous about when trying to explore this for the first time playing a 3D Metroid game was, how am I ever going to know that I'm passing up missile expansions? How do I know that I'm not going to find... like I said, you literally cubed the possibilities of where you can hide stuff. How am I going to see them all? Well, now, if you listen closely when you're moving, you can actually hear the sound effects in proximity to you, and they'll make this whoom, whoom,
right, giving you that
it's
needed
a hot
clue.
and cold kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can actually hear where you need to explore, which tells you pull out the scan visor, investigate stuff, and obviously you can scan enemies, learn all sorts of stuff about the lore of the creatures and places that you're in, which is something you could never do before.
No.
And scan visor turns what was... it still kind of is a game that you can beat in just a matter of hours and 100%. And now it's something that you can really dig into the world, and the lore is interesting.
Yeah.
So much is fleshed out just because of that scan visor, allowing you to have full access to this.
Which I know some people have complained about, how the scan visor really slows the game down, and
I think it more so does in Prime 3. This one, you can actually, for the most part, ignore it, except when you see, like, a door that opens or something like that, right?
Right, yeah, no, because you don't have to 100% your scan library at all in order to be able to beat it.
No, it just unlocks extra bonus content in the original as well as the new one.
Yeah, because in this remake here, it unlocks like a bunch of concept art and a lot of stuff like that. But I don't remember what it unlocked in the GameCube version.
Same deal. It would give you concept art, but now in this version, it will give you concept art from the GameCube as well as the remaster, which is nice. Yeah, there's a lot of little things in this. I have a full review of this game. If you want to check that out, shameless plug. I absolutely adore this game, if you can not already tell. That's the game that I wanted to make sure that we played today and showcased. What's really interesting about Prime, for one, it is very safe in terms of design structure of being just like Super Metroid, but bigger.
Yeah.
In one aspect, this place that we're in right now is going to eventually crash, and we will re-explore it and see the same rooms from a new perspective, and changing up everything that we've seen inside, which is brilliant. And it's something very similar to what we've seen in Super Metro with the wrecked ship.
Yep, exactly.
Very cool, very cool. The remaster, I know we don't want to spend too much time on just one game. We have a ton of stuff to talk about today. But the remaster itself, oh, Zach, this is beautiful.
Yeah, it really is. Didn't they basically go through and remodel and retexture everything?
They did. Almost everything.
And
so
tweak a bunch of the animations.
Right, and this already, just on the GameCube, I would say this is probably the best looking GameCube game.
I would almost say, I would agree with you on that front.
This game is gorgeous.
Hi, Parasite Queen.
Yep, this is your first boss. If you're playing a randomizer or something like that, they like to skip this entirely because there are no pickups in this opening area.
Yeah,
but still, I love this boss fight. I don't want to skip it.
No, it's actually a really good little tutorial fight. It's relatively safe and easy. I mean, yeah, because all you have to do is just dodge her acid breath and all that stuff, and it's in a straight line. So.
Right. So the only other things that were added into the remaster, as we mentioned, were the controls. I was just a little turned off by how it did completely change up. The beam swapping worked. Eventually, when you get farther in the game, it starts to get weird. And I can only see that for a new player becoming a problem if they had already gotten used to playing the game with twin stick, and now all of a sudden you get the wave beam and you have to switch back and forth and you have to hold X to do it, and it's really weird. And the game wasn't designed to do that.
Unfortunately, no. It was just a product of its time back then.
So I would actually recommend play it with the GameCube controller first if you want to experience it the way that it played originally, and then on a second run. The game's not that long. Give it another try with the twin stick, and you'll see what I mean. It's very comfortable in the beginning. You'll get used to it.
Or vice versa if you
right,
don't
or you'll
really...
hate it. You'll either love it or you will hate it. And for the sake of trying it, because I played this game a million times, I wanted to make sure I played it completely with the twin stick. And I did get used to it. It was pretty good in the beginning. It was just starting to fall apart later, which is just the way that it was. But mostly this is just a graphical spectacle. The UI is now able to fit properly on widescreen. Oh, this looks, it's all so good.
So you don't have to like mod your GameCube version to be able to support widescreen or have a GameCube.
Oh, this is great too.
Oh yeah, the parasite.
This extra
thing,
parasite blowing this up. There's so many cinematic events in this too. That, like, if you noticed during the fight with the Parasite Queen, I actually had to scan it again in order to learn about its weak spot, which changed my lock-on point to the weak spot in order to beat it. So this is very similar to old Metroid games, giving you that constant tutorial so that you're learning by playing. And that's my favorite type of design in games. If you couldn't tell, basically any game that does that kind of thing. So anyway, yeah, there's a ton that I could go on about this, but I would just say, you know, check out that review that we already have on the channel about the game, because it's outstanding. Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yep, so instead, we're going to move on to some more GameCube games. And the GameCube is just incredible.
Oh my gosh, yeah. No,
incredible little lunchbox.
That first year was like...
It was okay.
Yeah, well, I mean, it only was out in, what, like, October?
Yeah,
so
right. So it was launch titles. You had like Luigi's Mansion and a few other things. Yeah,
like
and of course, a lot of people were kind of bummed that there wasn't a sequel to Super Mario 64. And if we're gonna go out of order, because I just accidentally did that, we get it this year.
Yeah,
well, they say out of order because we just have it in an arbitrary, no particular order on our list.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, we didn't think of that transition. But there we go. We have a segue into Super Mario Sunshine.
Woohoo!
This is not a popular game, but Zach, I love this game so much.
I know. I don't know if it's just my nostalgia or what, but I remember...
Maybe, me too.
But the thing was, though, when I went back and got the Super Mario 3D All-Stars cart for Switch, I went back and played it, and for the most part, I think the game still holds up really well in a lot of ways.
I think it gets pulled down because of some bad, and I'll say bad, levels. There's a few that just really stink. There's like the Chuckster and the Pachinko machine and things that really are just feel-bad levels and punish you for time for failing in not a way that feels fun or fair.
Right, exactly. No, and like the last, like in the last level, Corona Mountain, where you have to use the boat in order to cross the lava lake.
I never had trouble with that though, but
I never could wrap my head around it personally. It was
it's weird. It's a physics thing.
Right.
Here's another cinematic Metroid Prime moment with the reveal that Ridley is not dead.
But why would you say, though, that is the big thing that people like really latch onto that they don't like about Super Mario Sunshine?
Probably the blue coins. And honestly, I think this is an easy fix. All you needed to do was have like a little, you know what, here, let's use Metroid Prime as an example. What if there was like some sort of hot and cold sound system that you could hear that you were near a blue coin?
Right.
Or if there was a way to tell there's X amount of blue coins left in Noki Bay, and you have to go back to that area and keep exploring it.
Right, and the
versus
fact that...
I don't know, you know, do I have to keep looking in the harbor, you know, for hours on end, just on the off chance that there might be a blue coin, and I don't even know what kind of...
or which level in the harbor.
Yeah, right. You have to load different... Like Mario 64, you will go to, from the main hub, Isle Delfino, a beautiful place.
Oh, it's
so
pretty.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
And we just obligatorily lost all of our upgrades.
As you do.
As we have to.
Yep.
So as you explore the area in Mario Sunshine, you are slowly bringing the light back to this dark, this
once beautiful, happy vacation island has been
resort, really. It's a beautiful resort spot because Mario and company were going on a vacation after Mario 64.
Yep.
But, yeah, of course, nothing's going to work out for them, and instead, Mario gets framed for a crime he didn't commit, and even though it becomes obvious later who the real culprit was, to the people who locked him up, he is still forced to complete cleaning the entire place. It's bonkers. It's just more Nintendo weird of what that story is. I have reviewed that as well.
Weird,
it's good Nintendo weird. It's not bad. I really do enjoy it.
Oh, yeah.
Like I said, there's just a few stages that make it really wonky and strange. You get to finally really play with Yoshi in this one, which we did not get in Mario 64.
Yeah,
the worlds are bigger. It's
Yeah.
so colorful. The music is wonderful.
And I think, for me personally, I think the thing that like really kind of like maybe pushed some people away from Super Mario Sunshine is the addition of Flood.
Yeah, I was gonna say we haven't even talked about Flood yet.
Yeah, now Flood is a backpack and it's also a water jet that really
And a
adds,
rocket.
Yep.
And a fan.
Uh-huh.
Flood is a
And turns you into Jesus Mario.
what? Oh, because you can run on water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The propeller nozzle. That's why.
Yeah, Flood. So the idea was, what do we do to enhance Mario in the 3D space in a way that is going to make this game relevant?
Yes.
As opposed to Mario 64, which has already done its thing. How do we not just make Mario 64 too? Because Miyamoto is a very ambitious man, and he wants to make sure, and for better or worse sometimes, unfortunately, this same year we're going to have one game that he kind of ruined. We'll get to it. But, yeah, but still, for Mario 64, trying to figure out how do we make this interesting, how do we not reinvent the wheel, but make Mario Sunshine its own thing. And that's what Flood is.
Yeah.
Flood is adding so much more versatility to Mario's 3D level exploration. How do you jump around levels? How do you explore them and interact with them?
And the thing I think that they actually did a good job of is accommodating in the level design the addition of Flood.
Yes.
And if you really don't like the Flood, there are certain shines that you can get where
He's just,
Shadow Mario
he's
takes
just
away
taken
your
from you.
Yeah, where Flood is taken away. That classic, giving you the taste of what you want, and then taking it away, making you really think, okay, what do I have to do to get out of this, or how best to use the situation to my advantage.
Yes, and some people say those are the best levels, and I think that they might be a little preferential to the fact that, one, you have this amazing a cappella version of the Mario Overworld theme from the first game.
That's just so funny
It's
in retrospect.
so good. But also, the levels themselves are kind of challenging in a way that the regular Sunshine stages are not, because there's pits everywhere whenever you're playing in those, because it's all about the platforming.
Yeah, you're literally on a bunch of platforms floating in like a void in space.
And I think
very
you're thrown into them
video
as early as like your third mission or something.
Yeah, because you have to ride that lily pad on the lake there in the first stage to the cave.
Or you can like climb your way up and swing your way up. There's a few ways there, I think. You can also, of course, exploit Flood to get there, because Flood is very broken.
Oh, Flood is so much fun.
Yeah, Flood is a good time. So I really enjoy that game.
Me too.
This is not to tangent us too quickly. This is something I actually forgot to mention about Metroid
yeah.
Prime.
Go ahead.
So since we just got to Planet Talon 4 proper, the map of Metroid Prime, I don't want to keep jumping around too much, but this is something that's really interesting and weird. So the game, since it is 3D, it's always keeping that map in your corner, and you can see where you're facing all the time.
Yes.
And the most important aspect of this is making sure that the player can actually identify where they need to go to progress, because the world's only going to get bigger and more confusing, and you might not remember which of those tunnels was which. How do I even know where I'm going?
Right.
So the game will actually have in-universe reasons for why it will stop you, as it just did me, and go bing, 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 seismic activity detected in this region. And you will go to that direction, and it'll highlight that quadrant on your map. And it's your job to figure out how that part of the map will connect and how you actually will progress through the game in order to get to that point. It's basically, it's revealing the critical path, but allowing you to explore and Metroid yourself around.
Yeah, like the thing I always appreciated about it is that it does show you, like you said, the critical path, but if you don't want to follow it right away, it's like, oh, I want to see what else is in the area. Maybe you can find a couple of upgrades later on that, you're never exactly truly like thrown to the wild and just expected to survive in this.
Right.
And especially from a first-person perspective, it's really hard to get like a lock on like certain landmarks to know where you are. It's not like something like Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario Sunshine where you know where in levels you are.
Right.
So, and that's a good accommodation. But back to Super Mario Sunshine.
Yes, let's go back to Sunshine.
One of the other complaints I remember people saying is that it's not very visually appealing. Like, it's not very visually varied. Like, it's only just like, how can people really like this area? It's just tropical resort for each and every single level. I'm like, that's the point.
Yes, that's like the overall theme, but they're very different places. You go to a theme park, you go to, like I said, the harbor. You can go to a hotel.
You can go to the Piantas Village on the other side of the island.
Oh, that's such a fun place too.
That is a lot of fun, especially when
I love the different aspects of how they change up each place you go to.
Yeah, it's all variations on the same theme, which I think really adds to the overall, just atmosphere.
Yes.
It's not just like, oh, yeah, fine, we go to Fireland, we go to Iceland, we go to Desertland.
Right.
No, it's a cohesive island. Yes. And that's what I really appreciate about it.
I do really love that about Sunshine as well.
So I never understood that criticism that it's not visually varied. You're just, I don't know. Whatever. Regardless, the thing that I think just is a shame, and I think it kind of came out years after its release, they only had, I think, a year and a half to actually make this game.
Yeah, see, originally, and this has a really weird history, this game originally was supposed to have different aspects. The original idea that they wanted to do for making a sequel to Mario 64 was, what if there was just more Marios, and up to 100, how many can we render at once? And eventually that turned into Pikmin.
Woohoo!
And I love Pikmin, and they had to obviously take that away from Mario and get it back to what Mario was, and I think they did a very good job.
I think that was the better choice. Yeah.
Yes, I agree. So I do really love that game. I do recommend you can pick it up, even though Nintendo doesn't want to sell it to you anymore.
No, you can still find copies of it out in the wild.
Yeah, you can.
People were like,
they were freaking out about that game.
Yeah, stores were inundated with physical copies of this game, but the fact that it was such a limited release and you can't buy it digitally anymore, it's just like, really?
It's just bad faith, man. I don't like that kind of consumer treatment at all.
It looks good on the sales records, but that's for, like, short term.
Right, they were trying to buff a year and make it look even better.
Yeah. But, still doesn't take away from the fact that, like you said, it's a very solid game. It's slightly flawed, but still play it for Flood. Flood makes the game for me.
He really does, yeah. If people complain about Flood, don't listen to people.
No, people don't know what they're talking about.
No, we don't know what we're talking about either. We just kind of talk anyway. For some reason, the internet gives everyone the right to speak. And here we are. So anyway, we're going to talk about the third of that Nintendo Holy Trinity. And good lord, we might be here for a while, because this is another killer game for the GameCube.
And what game is that, Alex?
This is The Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker.
Yes.
Now, this is so weird, because during its pre-release, people, and me included, were very scared with the way this game looked.
Yeah.
Because from what we had with Ocarina of Time and basically any of the Zelda games previous, Zelda was made to always look cutting edge and look like it's the most detailed version of really what could be like this cartoony version of Lord of the Rings kind of fantasy. If I can compare it to something, and then all of a sudden Wind Waker, you telling me this is all just like a funny cartoon game? What was I missing here?
Well, the thing was, it didn't help that, like, the prior demo for the game showed off, like, more realistic Ganondorf and Link fighting.
Yes.
And then they slap us with the cel-shaded, like...
Same thing happened with Skyward Sword. They do, like, a tech demo showcasing what the new console can do, and then completely go against that design aesthetic and try and do some new thing. Now, we're going to... we want to set this up first, because this is what it was like when it was coming out.
Yes.
Even though, in hindsight, Wind Waker is gorgeous.
Oh my god,
It was probably one of the most brilliantly done games for the system, because it took its limitations to the maximum. Yep. Metroid Prime was trying to make it look as best as it possibly could, and I'm amazed at how good it looks on the GameCube. But Wind Waker, I would even say it looks better on the GameCube than it does in its HD remaster with all the bloom nastiness. It's taking advantage of cel shading to make the entire game just look like this indescribable, beautiful, real living place.
Yeah, it basically kind of makes it look like one of those tapestries like you see in like old like buildings and stuff that tell a story. Or even
and it will do that with its stained glass illustrations in the same game.
Exactly. Or if we want to keep to the theme, like those sea charts that you get. You're actually looking like an old pirate chart or something.
So that's another big aspect of this game that makes it very different from Zelda games past. We now, instead of having a huge Hyrule to explore, you do have Hyrule, yet Hyrule is completely underwater. And only the mountaintops are able to be explored. And so to explore those mountaintops, you will be sailing across them with a talking boat companion.
Yep.
Who's a fun character.
Oh, I love the King of Red Lions. He's so much fun.
He's a better Navi, I think.
Yeah, he's a lot more tolerable in some cases,
he doesn't nag you constantly, though he's very talkative, but of course you need someone to talk to you, because Link won't say a darn thing. But boy, does he emote in this, and he emotes the most in this more than any other Zelda game.
Yeah, aside from like the facial expressions that Link has in Skyward Sword, I would almost argue that it's like the GameCube version, the Wind Waker game, has a lot more of an expressive Link.
Yeah, even Twilight Princess that we'll later see on the GameCube, it's even more expressive because it's cartoony, and there's so much more that they can give him as a personality as he reacts to situations.
Because like he's got like a lick of hair that covers one of his eyes, but yet you can still see the eye above the hair, just
those
so you can
cat
still
eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it took a while for me to latch on to the aesthetics of this game, and I think I was sold by it mostly because of how much the gameplay can benefit when your graphics aren't soaking up all of your console's hardware power.
Exactly, yeah. Now, the thing I love about it is, see, I actually loved sailing across the Great Sea. And
Me too.
And the fact that once you get the Wind Waker and you can actually change the wind's position, it actually turns it into a true open world.
Yes, it does. Because up to that point, you're kind of at the mercy of wherever the wind blows, and you just have a sail, and you go that direction. And then after that, it's just, you have a treasure map. Go explore that direction. Oh, but you didn't explore this quadrant of the map, and you just found a whole new island. What do you want to do? There's so much you can do and explore, and it's so freeing and huge. It's a wonderful, wonderful game.
Now, granted, it's still linear in its design. It's still a Zelda game. You still have to go to the dungeons in specific orders, but it's the ancillary areas everywhere else that can lead to a lot of cool adventures and a lot of cool items. And there's absolutely a lot to love about the game, but for me, it's another one of those things that I feel like this game didn't have enough time to cook either.
Some of it, especially in the later half, starts to feel like it's not exactly rushed is the word, but almost like they didn't have enough time to really fulfill what they wanted to do.
Like they had to take what they had already made and just make it work, almost. Which, you know, you can kind of tell because it's like, it doesn't feel like Makar or Medley belong in the dungeons that they're given to.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like that there was supposed to have been a third sage or something, or 4 sages in the end, but it's not that big a deal in the end, because the game still, I think, pulls off what it does extraordinarily well. And it's honestly my favorite 3D Zelda game.
Yeah, it's very close for me. It's tying, if not second, so it's an extremely good one.
Absolutely.
It's such a shame that of these 3 games we've talked about so far, 3 of Nintendo's biggest games, you can't play the Zelda one on their newest hardware.
No,
and there exists a version of it that plays it in HD graphics. Yeah, even though I'm not a huge fan of the way that it visually looks, because it takes away from the aesthetic of the cell shading.
Or did we have to get an HD version, quote unquote HD version of Skyward Sword, when we already had HD versions of 2 arguably better games already there?
Why didn't they come with it is the real question that I'm asking. But
money.
Well, if it was money, then they would be selling the other versions of those games at the same time, and they aren't.
Who knows?
Now, to be fair, they were made for the Wii U, and porting does take a lot of work, so it's not like this is something that they're just choosing not to do for free. It is dev time. They have to do have to make it.
I'm not trying to delegitimize that aspect. I'm just saying that it's like how there were rumors about a Metroid Prime remastered trilogy.
Yeah, and then we just get this, and now there's supposedly rumors that they're making 2. We're like, well...
Yeah, now I'm gonna have to pay another $40 or $50.
Granted, I wasn't thinking that it was gonna look and play this
right.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
who knows?
Who knows? Maybe we are getting a Wind Waker Twilight Princess, and they're gonna be incredible.
Yeah, I hope so, if that's the case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would say, play it whatever way you can.
Unless Nintendo wants to come get you. Just don't stream it.
Yeah, just don't... yeah,
because really, that would be one of those games. There is absolutely no way to actually stream that anymore from this moment on. Until they change their policies.
Again.
But
yeah, anything else you want to add about Twilight? Oh my god. about Wind Waker?
It's funny just to say why the other game that I was teasing would probably be my favorite 3D Zelda is the other GameCube one, the Twilight Princess. And I think it's just because after Wind Waker, I just really wanted to see what that evolution from Ocarina of Time would actually look like on next generation, and that's Twilight Princess. And in many ways, it is just also gorgeous in a different right. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah.
But it's something that it's like filling a different need that Wind Waker has, and Wind Waker is like the truest open exploration Zelda that I've ever played.
Yeah,
and it's definitely worth playing if you can somehow get it without Nintendo getting mad at you.
Well, like we said, don't stream it. Don't let it be known. It's like, who cares at that point?
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to move on. We have a couple other GameCube games to talk about.
Yep, we'll
Zach,
try to
I'm going
be
to hand
as
this one off to you so I can try and explode.
Thank you. All right, so one of the quick-fire ones I want to talk about briefly is Eternal Darkness: Sanity's Requiem. Do you know anything about this one?
Not really, but we do want to try, like you said, we want to have some rapid-fire ones spliced in here again.
So, real quick, it is a survival horror game, the first M-rated game on the GameCube that Nintendo themselves actually published. I think Rare was like... it's arguably that Conker's Bad Fur Day was first, but this is the big one people
the GameCube
talk about.
maybe, but
its most notable quality is that there is a sanity mechanic. So as you keep playing and dealing with like all these Lovecraftian weirdness, your character loses more and more sanity, and that comes across in gameplay, and it breaks the fourth wall in so many aspects. Like, you'll watch as your character will be walking down a hall, then all of a sudden you'll watch as the model starts sinking into the floor and clipping through, and then all of a sudden they'll just pop back out after you go into a new room, along with a lot of other things. Like, the game will like try to change the TV video settings on you. But it's like it's not literally doing anything.
Yeah, it's the Hideo thing.
Yes, exactly. It's exactly like that. So it's a lot of fun. It's still stuck on the GameCube. We were supposed to get a sequel to it, but fallout between Silicon Knights, the developers, and Nintendo, we never got it, unfortunately. But still, we got a fantastic game. If you can get a hold of it, please play it. And I'm not going to try to spoil it for you. It's nuts. So, moving on, we have another great survival horror game in the form of the Resident Evil remake that was exclusive to the GameCube for, what, a hot minute?
Yeah, right. Just like what would happen with the Capcom 5.
Yeah.
Oh, boy,
but,
did Capcom screw over Nintendo in a big way.
Do you have anything you want to talk about with Resi Remake real quick?
I was actually just playing it last week, funnily. And,
okay.
Yeah, so... It's still pretty good, like, comparing to the PS1 version of this game.
Yeah.
This, basically, the goal of it, from my perspective, is try to suck out a lot of what made that PS1 version so corny. Still make it fun, still make it, like, B-movie kind of campy, what it was, but not so over the top that it's meme-worthy bad.
Yeah, it's a lot more self-aware than the original one was.
Yes, and there's also a lot of bits in it that, like, are mechanically, they play a lot better.
Oh, absolutely. There's new models, there's new backgrounds. Spencer Mansion has been reconstructed and things have been rearranged a little bit. Gameplay-wise, it's a lot better. It cleans up some of the mechanics, like you're given a quick turn in order to be able to run away from zombies.
Yeah, like that kind of stuff, you need that. Because originally, and I would say the only thing holding this game back is that it's still using a fixed camera perspective.
And I do not think that is a problem at all, personally.
Yeah, it's something that drives me nuts, because like when I'm trying to turn a corner quickly, especially if I'm being chased by zombies, I want to make sure that I know which direction I'm running or where I'm aiming, and you'll get tripped up. Yeah, it's just something that'll happen.
I found for the most part that was never really much of a concern for me. I don't think it happens all that often for me when I was playing it, like getting turned around from a mechanics perspective. I always found it easy to really get around and manipulate the zombies to get around them.
Oh yeah, they're still programmed to function like they did on the PS1, which helps a lot. Yeah, makes it so that it doesn't feel as unfair when you turn a corner and you're just eaten alive. And you still have the ink ribbon save system, so
which I think is cool.
Yeah, it's tense and stressful. Now, that's actually the reason why I felt like I had to stop playing it with a toddler, because I was like, well, I can't just you know, don't tell me when I can and can't save. I just have to turn my game off at some points because somebody woke up.
Yeah, I was going to say it's available today as the Resident Evil HD remaster or whatever.
Yeah, you can get it on Steam. You can get it on Switch, I think.
Yep.
You can play it on anything.
PS4, Xbox. My only gripe with it is that it turned it from a 4:3 aspect ratio, which everything was built around, and stretched it to widescreen. So that way it's not still images every time you go somewhere. Like like the cameras have to follow you. Yeah. It's weird, but it's still Resi Remake.
Yeah, it's
whatever.
Yeah, that's just another aspect where the camera. I think that might have been it, like compounding, making it feel a little.
Oh, were you playing the HD version? Oh, okay. See, that's probably why.
Yeah, see, that's just the thing. That's just what the game is now, and that's kind of where I'm like, honestly, I would love to see that story of the mansion because that's my. Personally, that's kind of like my favorite Resident Evil story that they've done.
Yeah.
Maybe it's the best setting. I'm not sure what it is, but I really want to see more of that.
It's very classic horror, like being stuck inside a mansion.
Yeah,
you can't get out.
Yeah,
and
if
all
you
that.
try and open the door, zombie dogs are going to bite at your arms or
so
something
you've
like
just
that.
got to survive as long as you can in order to be able to save you.
And I think in this version, like in the original one, if you tried to open the front door and get out, a zombie dog would just like you'd see a little animation, a pre-rendered thing of a zombie dog trying to get in, and you shut the door on them. In the remake, one of them gets in, and now you have to fight a zombie dog.
Yeah, if you keep actually trying to open that door, it will sick some Cerberus dogs on you. Which is
I only
amazing.
looked once because I wanted to see the cutscene, and the dog got in.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
maybe
time.
it's randomized.
It might be random. I don't know.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was exciting.
All right, but cool. Go ahead and
that
play
was supposed to be quick.
Yeah, but go ahead and play it any way you can.
Yeah, it's still a good time.
Yes.
Definitely. I would say like if they ever get around to remaking that like they did 2, 3, and 4, that game would be phenomenal.
I don't like that idea, but it might sell. Who knows?
Did you play 2? Remake of 2?
I did.
Yeah, I think that does wonders for 2. I think it would do wonders for 1 too.
Yeah,
1 as well.
Maybe. I don't know. Well, I'd have to see.
In the way that I'd prefer to play it, but
That's
anyway,
right.
the next one we're going to talk about is that Miyamoto doing a blunder. Unfortunately.
Well, I don't know.
I
if it's
kind of.
Okay, it's without trying to go too far into it. We're talking about Star Fox Adventures.
Yep.
Which, quick history, started out as a Nintendo 64 game, had nothing to do with Star Fox, called Dinosaur Planet. My God, if you've seen the leaks for it and just the almost finished build of it, which people are still working on to get it finished and working.
Yeah.
It's very good.
It is. It's really cool. And it would have been a very late N64 game, so I understand trying to hold it off and put it on the GameCube.
And around this time, Rare was sold to Microsoft, so I think it might have been...
That's part of the problem.
I think, too, it was also a way for Nintendo to keep this game.
Yeah, Nintendo trying to make sure that they could hold a firm grip on Dinosaur Planet and make sure that, it's not something that's going to be taken from them by Microsoft.
Exactly. So
it's just a very, very unfortunate product of this year, which we probably should mention. This is when Rare is going to be acquired by Microsoft.
Which it still baffles me why Nintendo never just properly fully invested them. Yeah,
I know, because since they didn't, we kind of see the death of Rare.
More or less, yeah. We've had some cool ideas come out of Rare.
They're
at
never
that
the
time,
same
but
after this point. Yeah, and this is kind of the last straggler, repurposed version of what their final game, true Rare Nintendo game, was going to be.
Exactly, yeah. Because, we still talk about stuff like Star Fox Adventures or Banjo-Kazooie. We don't talk about Grabbed by the Ghoulies or Cameo or anything else.
The new Perfect Dark or Nuts and Bolts or something like that.
Exactly. It's a Zelda clone where Fox has been told by General Pepper, go down to Dinosaur Planet, save its citizens from General Scales, bit bop boom, you get a staff, you fight, you do dungeons and puzzles. It's not bad. I liked it quite a bit.
It's not bad. That's the thing. It's awkwardly made into a Star Fox game, and it's not a Star Fox game.
No, in order to get to different dungeons or areas of the planet, you have to get on your R-Wing and do a short little Star Fox level, which doesn't feel that good to actually pilot your R-Wing in. Yeah,
it's kind of thrown into the game, because it wasn't intended to be that.
Exactly, right.
Crystal was not intended to be a Star Fox character, so it's always sad for me to see people who were fans of this game, but not understanding what we don't have now. You would probably be a huge fan of the Dinosaur Planet.
Yeah, because
and not realizing you're not playing Dinosaur Planet and it won't ever exist.
Yeah, because
of
Crystal
poor timing.
was supposed to be player 2. Like, you would actually switch between her and Saber, the other wolf character who got repurposed into Star Fox.
Right.
But still, I'd say not something to skip, but if you're like a big Zelda fan and you want to play something that's like Zelda, I'd say it's worth it. But
and see, that's the problem. It's not for a Star Fox fan, and that's what the
No,
game
it's
is
not a Star
forcefully
Fox
made for.
Yeah.
And that's a real shame, because we don't ever really get a good Star Fox game again after 64.
Not really. Assault is
Like
the
an
closest.
actual Star Fox game.
Yeah, Assault is the closest I can think we would
closest,
get.
yeah.
But that's Star Fox Adventures. Anything you wanted to add to it before we moved on to another system?
It makes me sad, really. But hey,
Yeah.
at least Dinosaur Planet finally leaked. Oh, that's not it. It's over here.
Oh, that's okay. Yeah, at least it leaked and we got to see what it could have been like. So that's cool.
Yeah, that is a good thing.
Yeah.
All right, so we're going to move on to another console.
Woohoo!
Woohoo! So you remember that PlayStation thing that was kind of having a not so great first year in terms of its games?
But in 2001, we started seeing things picking up.
Yeah.
And it was more than just a DVD player.
Yeah, now it's really starting to pull that off.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
The PS2, oh my gosh.
Oh, my good golly gosh.
Okay, so this year in particular, if you think of like any media thing that was happening this year, I actually don't even think of Metroid Prime and The Wind Waker and Mario Sunshine. You know what I think of for all the commercials and everything that I saw?
What do you think of?
I think of Kingdom Hearts.
Heck yeah.
Kingdom Hearts dominated this year.
Oh my god, I could not get away without seeing an ad for it on TV or
It was
hearing
everywhere. It was something like you never saw video game ads back then. I rarely saw them.
Yeah, like they were a thing, but they weren't like as in your
Yeah.
face. Like Square Enix or Square at the time was pushing this game hard.
Yeah.
And like what a strange game if you think about it.
Right, so Kingdom Hearts, we should probably quickly mention,
Yeah.
even though you probably already know.
It is an action RPG with original characters. However, it's also a cross promotion between Final Fantasy and the properties of Walt Disney's animated studios.
Which everyone expected and saw coming, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, watching the trailers and seeing, like, Maleficent and then Squall.
Yeah.
Leon, for whatever reason.
Yeah.
But still, seeing Final Fantasy characters and then Disney characters next to each other.
Yeah, that was like the strangest thing. Like, this was literally a fan fiction writer's dream come true.
Yes.
And also the ship that launched 10,000 other fan fictions.
Yeah.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
Sometimes for funny better. But that's not the point. Point is, the thing that I love about this game is the whimsy and charm of it all. And just the absolute novelty of, like, just going through and playing a game like this, you know? So you start off on a little island as Sora, and you're hanging out with young Final Fantasy characters.
Yeah, from FF10.
Yeah,
which
from
is
FF10 and
super
8.
weird.
Selfie,
Yeah,
Waka, and Tidus.
These games just came out.
Yeah.
Right.
So you just got done playing that epic Final Fantasy X, and now all of a sudden, here's a kid version.
Yeah.
Like,
And they
sure.
see each other, like, before they know each other.
Yeah, exactly. But shenanigans happen, and as Sora, you are whisked away from Outset Island.
You'll never see your mom ever again.
Yeah.
For the rest of your life.
Yeah, right. And you just are going on a weird, structured action RPG where you're
went the
going
wrong
from,
way
like,
again.
Disney World to Disney World, solving all their problems that these beings called the Heartless are trying to mess up by taking the hearts, which is like the power of people, and using it for their own nefarious purposes. And the villains are, of course, the villains of all the Disney universes that you go to. Maleficent from Sleeping Beauty, Clayton from Tarzan, etc., etc. And in between all that is kind of like a really, for its target audience, an interestingly written like teenage drama. Like, it's very much, it has that teenage spirit and that sort of like teenage, like angsty, like logic.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I
the
mean?
logic. It's very...
It's very emotional. It's not very like intellectually logical. It's very
yeah.
emotionally logical. Like,
Yeah.
it makes sense in its own world.
Right, because when you're watching, and this is probably my biggest criticism of it, when you, I say watching it, when you play the game and you go to the Peter Pan, you go to Aladdin's world, you're not actually experiencing that world. Instead, you're playing a weird hybridization of what their original story was, but instead splicing Donald, Goofy, and Sora into the mix, making it pretend to work. And it's all kind of awkward and not really telling the story right. Personally, I would have rather have gone to the world of Peter Pan and Aladdin, and it's not like it's just because they have finished their character arcs, there's nothing you can further do with the characters anymore. I think you absolutely could have made a compelling game and story from going to these places. And I think only the, weirdly enough, the most underutilized one, the Hercules Stadium area, is probably the only one that does this well. Because you go there, and it's really just about fighting bosses and side stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's already assumed the story of Hercules has happened, or he's kind of in the middle of whatever is happening. Doesn't really matter, because you're wanting to see the characters and be in the world. You're not there to see a really weird rendition of Beauty and the Beast.
Well, my thing, too, is who knows how stringent Disney was wanting to be with, like, how Square used the properties. So my thing was, like, maybe it's just a way to show that, hey, these stories you're familiar with, they're going to be messed up if you don't do something about it. Which is what I was thinking.
I guess, yeah.
And maybe the best way that Square could have, like, gone around to, you know, get around that thing. But I think for what it is, it works. Especially as a one-off. And I don't want to say, like, the sequels, and I don't want to get into all the sequels, really.
Yeah, well, the game, that's part of the game. The game actually ends...
on a cliffhanger.
Cliffhanger.
A huge cliffhanger.
Yeah, blatantly saying it's going to be making more, and unfortunately for it, that it kept going, because I think this game is probably best left what it was. Just that one-off, silly little Final Fantasy crossover that somehow gave us a bunch of Disney characters and worlds in an RPG that we'd never expected on the PS2 in a very accessible way. And I think that was very successful, even though I've got some problems with it. I've also reviewed this game.
Shameless plug.
Yeah, shameless plug. We've reviewed a lot of these. This is a big year. But still, it's not like the future ones, I think, ever really hold up to it. We're probably not going to talk about Kingdom Hearts ever again on this this series.
Not particularly. Like, it's the start of, like, a huge franchise for Square.
I feel like it kept going for money, and they already expected the money just from the very outset of it, because they already knew people were going to be buying into this, that they were going to put an outro that teased another game that was not Kingdom Hearts 2. It was actually Chain of Memories, not even on the same console. So when you do play Kingdom Hearts 2 on the same console, you're going to be confused and have to hunt down the other ones. And now if you want to play Kingdom Hearts 3, you basically need to read the Bible and figure out what on earth is going on. How many things do I have to catch up on? Not in terms of the Disney lore, but it's all with the invented lore.
Right. Well, not only do you also have to read the Bible, you also have to read the Dead Sea Scrolls, so that way you understand a specific part of the Bible.
Exactly. Yeah, and then all of the books that were canned from there, and, you know...
Yeah, right.
All the stuff that they didn't permit to put in the Bible.
Apocrypha, but...
our analogy is falling apart, but still, so is Kingdom Hearts.
My thing was, if they didn't make so many games and it just stuck to, like, what they did with Final Fantasy, like Kingdom Hearts 1, Kingdom Hearts 2, Kingdom Hearts 3.
And stop revisiting the same Disney worlds, for crying out loud. People were expecting to play these and go to new Disney worlds, but instead you do the same ones over and over and over again.
Exactly.
You go to Agrabah, I think, in every single one of them.
You go to Hercules Stadium in each and every single one as well.
What's up with that?
I don't know.
You'd think after you saved it, like, you saved it. Can we please see another one? Like, that's the idea. That's why people were so tantalized with the game.
Yeah, well, no. We saved it from the nobodies. Now we've got to save...
Yeah,
right. Heartless. Now we got to save it from the nobodies, and then whatever other nonsense they decided to pull.
Yeah,
regardless,
it goes and goes.
Regardless, I still enjoy it for what it is.
Yeah,
personally.
And I reviewed it.
Yeah, you can still play it.
Well, I think it was a fun media sensation, if nothing else. So, anyway.
Sure.
There's other games we want to talk about.
Yep. And I'm going to let you talk about this one, because I am not entirely up on my Xenosaga.
Xenosaga. So, a very important thing happens previous to this point. So, we talked about Xenogears.
Yep.
And
one of the best PlayStation 1 games ever.
Yes. I would say it is tied with Metal Gear Solid with being the best game on the console. It's incredible. And the people who made that were effectively Square Enix employees who were not really allowed to fully create what they wanted to create for the newest Final Fantasies and the Mana series and all sorts of other games that they kind of had to put their other ideas into.
Yeah.
For whatever reason that Square Enix had, just trying to fit stuff into Final Fantasy, for better or worse. I know Final Fantasy VII, turns out wonderfully.
Oh, absolutely,
but there was a lot of ideas that were supposed to be Final Fantasy VII. And
Xenogears was one.
Xenogears was one. And the people who worked on Xenogears were a little frustrated with how they were being treated at Square Enix, decided to split off and form their own company. You may have heard of them, called Monolith Soft.
Woohoo.
And Monolith Soft, at this point, is purchased by Bandai Namco. And this is their first time making a RPG in the same vein of Xenogears, but of course they can't call it Xenogears, so now it's its new thing called Xenosaga. And Xenosaga, oh my gosh, it is a very, very ambitious game. This was supposed to be a literal saga of 6 RPGs long, telling one story, just to try and finish up what this is. And unfortunately, I'll tell you right now, they only got halfway through that. But we'll probably talk about Saga 3 when we get there, but just talk about Xenosaga in general. This is the introduction of Cosmos, if you're familiar at all with that character. She almost made it into Smash Brothers. She was supposed to be in Smash Brothers Brawl, by the way.
Oh,
I know.
A shame.
Well, to be fair, at the last minute, they got the okay to put in Sonic the Hedgehog and Solid Snake, which admittedly are both much bigger characters.
Yeah, they are.
So I understand it, but I am still very sad by that loss because it would have... the Xeno series is incredible and it absolutely needs more attention. So, yeah, Kim would be very, very mad at us if we got through this hitbox and we didn't even mention Xenosaga. It's honestly, I guess, in a similar vein of Kingdom Hearts, I think the best, personally, in my opinion, is the first one before the lore starts getting really nuts and you really have to read up on everything to understand everything that's going on.
Right.
Because the first one actually does a really good job of just trying to tell the one story. And it actually has a really good conclusion to it as well. Even if you pretend there is nothing else that will come after this point, and I'm getting annihilated by this.
Right, because it was made to be that one-shot, so it's made to have that specific 3-act structure while also telling an overarching tale, like you were saying, Because the thing that I know about it is that it's a science fiction turn-based RPG with a lot of, like, pseudo-religious or just straight-up religious themes and stuff in it, right?
So Xenogears was taking religion. Now, don't think of like, oh, this is all about Jesus. No. So
no.
Basically, what they actually were doing was treating it as like a mythology. So what if in the distant future you can explore what it's like in thousands of years when modern religions are so misunderstood they are considered mythology of that time? What is that world like, and what becomes of that world? And when you explore that, all of a sudden, everything is very alien and different and misunderstood. And because of that, in very similar ways, it's reflecting on modern society of people looking at it, say, like, people will do the craziest things because there is a really old book that tells them that they own a certain land in a certain part of the world. And it's interesting how, looking in the future, we could also see what people would likely also be doing for very similar situations, because they don't know in Xenosaga. Basically what happens is the Earth, which is their homeworld that they call Lost Jerusalem, vanishes instantly, and no one knows where it is, and even its location in space becomes lost, and it becomes kind of like the Holy Land, and people are like on this quest to try and find it, and they think it's tied to these certain like mystical devices. It's very, very intense, and it's really interesting also dealing with cyborgs having human rights. And it's not just with Cosmos, who is a cyborg herself. There are creature people robot things called Realians who are biological androids. They have like actual parts inside of them that are made by computers, and then there are parts of them that could be like an actual kidney from a human.
It's this weird biomechanical mix.
And they are not being given full rights as humans, and there are actual wars playing out in the world because of this. So there's lots of things happening all at once. It's a very interwoven, huge thing, intent on telling a larger narrative over the course of 6 games, and this is just the first one. So it's a big thing, and really just the birth of Monolith Soft is the big thing. These people, if anything, they are ambitious.
Yeah, and that can be both an amazing thing and a bad thing at the same time. But in their case, they generally pull it off.
Yes, I think the first time they finally got to see something through all the way was with Xenoblade. And they actually just very recently got to tie it all together into the Saga universe.
Finally.
With the rights given by Bandai Namco, which is a wonderful thing to have happened.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Made me so happy. We gotta move on, though.
Yeah, but anything
That's
else
supposed to be
add?
rapid fire.
Yeah.
I think so. No, it wasn't.
No.
Okay, good. It made me feel better. I was gonna say, I don't know how I'm supposed to rapid fire Xeno
There's
Saga.
no way you could.
No, even if we're just talking about the importance of what happens to Monolith Soft, it alone, this is enormous.
Exactly. But moving on, we are now going to talk about some Sony first-party titles that really help make the PlayStation 2, in my opinion. This first one being Ratchet and Clank. What do you know about Ratchet and Clank?
So, well, story's kind of, it makes me think of Rare, actually. Kind of like a Saturday morning cartoon kind of odd matchup of two conflicting characters who go on interplanetary travels. They can construct and invent different gear for themselves to explore 3D platforming worlds.
Yep.
A little bit of combat as well, and yeah, it's basically Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, it's from Insomniac, the guys who made...
Should have mentioned that.
Yeah, it's...
Spyro the Dragon.
Yeah, made Spyro the Dragon and would go on to make the recent
new Spider-Man
games. Yeah, that Insomniac.
Yeah, you heard of that game? Spider-Man 2 just came out. We can be relevant.
We can be totally relevant.
We're talking about 2002. We can be relevant. Eventually we'll be relevant. Just give us like another 6 years of Hitbox.
Hey, well, no, by 6 years, we'd have to add 6 more years.
Oh, goodness. Can we make one episode a year?
Can if you want.
I don't know. Well, each episode will take a year at this rate, for how slow we talk.
But so it's from Insomniac, and yeah, like you said, it's a 3D platformer that has a heavy emphasis on combat and gunplay, which is my favorite part of this whole entire series.
Yeah, it works really well on the PS2.
So, like, yeah, exactly. So it has that quirky, like, Insomniac humor and charm where it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's
almost like that Sega vibe. Like, Sony at this point kind of becomes the new Sega.
In some regards, yeah. But yeah, it's got that odd couple kind of mentality to it between Ratchet and Clank. Clank is a very no-nonsense robot who wants to stop Drek from creating his own planet to basically just make a ton of money. And we got Ratchet, who is a very headstrong, kind of arrogant, and very immature Lombax. And
whatever a Lombax is.
Yeah, a Lombax is Ratchet, the only one in the universe.
Yep, whatever that means.
It's fun to actually go through the story, see all the side characters who they interact with to get various pieces to go further out into the galaxy and do what they want. And like I said, my favorite aspect is the gunplay, where you have everything from like a standard laser pistol to the Rhino, which is an acronym. I don't remember what it means.
Yeah,
but
I forget.
It's basically their version of the BFG.
The BFG from Doom.
Yes. And there's also, I think in this one, there's the Sheepinator, which turns your enemies into sheep.
See, that's rare to me. Like, I was seeing that game like this. I was happy to see, like, that classic, weird, kind of kooky games are still in effect. And people are still loving them.
Exactly, yeah.
And making them, at least, for us.
And that's why I love the series overall. It's just the constant quality and the fact how it's able to, like, one-up itself each and every time, for the most part, to give new weapons, bigger stories, and just actually goes to really making Ratchet and Clank a believable duo. Like, you actually believe they grow to like each other and care for each other as the series goes on. It's still coming out today. Ratchet and Clank Rifts Apart.
I hear the PS5, it was actually really nice. And the gimmicks of that one in general, just taking advantage of how the PS5 can load so quickly, it's really cool.
Yes. So it's, I think you can still, you can play the remake on PS4 on PS5. You can play the new one that just came out. It's still available in chunks and pieces. I'd say if you like platformers, definitely give this one a go. It's classic for a reason.
Yes.
And so we're going to move on to another third-party title. This one being Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you know about Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus?
So, in a similar vein of Ratchet and Clank, it's like that Saturday morning cartoon.
Yes.
Except you're kind of playing a 3D platformer thief game
Yeah,
where
it's a stealth game.
yeah, and it plays similarly. I kind of think of like Uncharted would like kind of eventually get from this, but with
Yeah.
more like melee combat and 3D platforming, but not nearly as dead serious as Uncharted. It's obviously it's a very cartoony, silly game.
Yeah, like you're Sly Cooper, you were a thief raccoon who comes from a long line of thieves throughout history. The book that holds your entire family history of thieving techniques has been stolen. You gotta go on a globe-trotting adventure to get it all back from an evil criminal organization. All the while being pursued by Carmelita Fox, who is like a Latina Fox and Interpol inspector. It's like, yeah, this is very much like a classic like stealth game in the guise of a Saturday morning cartoon, because this is another one of those games that's cel shaded as well.
Yeah, looks really good.
Yeah, it really adds to that atmosphere.
It helps them age well too, because like think of, for example, look at Metal Gear Solid 2, same console, and they're trying to go for realistic in an age when realism doesn't quite. We're not there yet in terms of graphics, so that's kind of why Wind Waker looked so good
even today.
when it did. Yes, and it still looks wonderful.
Exactly. Like, as much as I like Metal Gear Solid 2, in some cases the visuals I just look at
Writing kind of looks like plastic.
It's a little rough.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah,
so,
I love it for its thesis, not so much for its graphics.
Yeah, exactly. But with the whole point of the game is that it's a linear action stealth game where you are going through trying to avoid detection, and you are just platforming around. You have different stealth abilities you get as you go along, like the ability to like sneak behind someone to be able to deliver a knockout blow, the ability to like jump on like these infinitesimal points on like rods or antenna to be able to get around. It's a lot of fun. Like, I don't mind the fact that it like forces you through like a corridor in essence. It's actually a really well designed game with a lot of thought going into, okay, how do we show that Sly is a thief? And you're forced to like break windows to get into buildings. You're disarming laser traps and alarms.
Yeah. This is also it's another one of those games that's helping differentiate Sony games from Nintendo games, because this is something I could easily see releasing on GameCube instead exclusively, and like we would never see it for the PS2. It feels like that Saturday morning Nintendo kind of thing.
Yes.
So it's good to see that like PlayStation at this point isn't purely aiming at the teenage and up audience.
Right.
It's supposed to be, oh no, this is a DVD player plus console. You can play all sorts of games on this.
Yes, exactly.
We also wanted to talk about Sucker Punch.
Yes, this is the second game actually from Sucker Punch, and for those who have been watching this series, 1999 was the release of Rocket Robot on Wheels, the first game Sucker Punch ever put out. And you can see definitely their 3D platform.
Quite a jump.
Yeah. You can definitely see their 3D platforming roots take a lot more of a hold, and is just a lot better in this game than even in Rocket Robot on Wheels. And I like Rocket quite a bit. Yeah. But
we know you do.
I'm a 3D platformer, dude. What can I say? Yeah, and like this is the series that really makes Sucker Punch a household name, I'd argue. And then eventually from them we would go into Infamous, that amazing series, and then eventually Ghosts of Tsushima. Which looks phenomenal. I don't have a PS4 or 5, and I doubt my PC would be able to run it if it ever comes to Steam or whatever.
I haven't had a chance to play it myself, so I guess there we are with that.
Yeah, but they're still around today. They're still making banger games. I was going to say, if you can find a way to play them, because I think the last time you could really play a Sly Cooper game was on the PS3. So if you can find a way
to...
Yes.
Oof.
We have not had a Sly Cooper game since...
what about ports, remasters, anything?
No, the only ports we had was the HD remasters on the PS3 of the first 3 games.
Oh, no.
Yeah, and that's the
What are they
part.
doing?
Yeah, what are they? Well, they're focusing more on those...
The big budget, huge...
God of War, Uncharted 4, Last of Us, Ghost of Tsushima thing, yeah, exactly. So that's where that all went. Tastes have changed, and people are probably... For the most part, I guess, are not exactly hungry for a stealth action game at the moment.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. But anything you wanted to add about Sly Cooper before we did a rapid fire of one more PS2 game?
No, let's move on to our rapid fire.
All right. We are going to briefly talk about, because I've never played this one, Final Fantasy XI.
Yes. Now, I know we mentioned we don't want to talk about every single entry that this series does, but this one, at least rapid fire, we wanted to mention because this is the first time they're doing an MMO.
Yeah, Square doing a freaking MMO.
With Final Fantasy.
A mainline game, too, which, like, at the
yeah,
time...
they numbered it. They didn't call it, like, Final Fantasy Online.
Yeah.
Yeah, they called it Final Fantasy 11.
Which shows you how much they were willing to bet on this game. And for the time... Especially for the time, it was actually really well received, and it had constant updates. And it had a recent update as of 2020.
That's crazy.
Yeah, like they're still supporting the game.
Yeah, because at this point, 14 has completely, I would even say, made this obsolete.
In some regards, yeah. In a lot of regards.
Which is good, because that has gotten so much attention and love, and wow, that game is gargantuan. I think you had to stop playing it for your own sanity.
Yeah.
You would never play any other game again.
No,
That's a forever game.
It is a forever game, and they just announced the newest expansion that it's coming out next year.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not even to the second expansion. Like I stopped towards the end of the first. And I was, my playtime was like 200 some odd hours at that point. Yeah.
Yeah, these are forever games. But still, hey, it happens this year, and you could play it on the PS2 with Final Fantasy 11, we're talking about.
Yes.
That's amazing. All right, so most of our PC list today is going to be rapid fire, but the first one we want to spend a little extra time on today because Zach, in particular... You really love this one.
I do.
I don't remember if I hands-on actually got to play this one. We're going to be talking about one, I think is the only one that also touched Xbox on our list today. I'm not positive on that.
It is.
Okay, so...
Launched almost date and day, I believe.
Really? Oh, cool. So we're going to be talking about Elder Scrolls 3. A little series you might be familiar with.
Yeah, Skyrim. Yeah, you might have heard of Skyrim.
Personally, actually, I would say Oblivion is the first one that I actually was familiar with.
Yeah,
but yeah, same. Skyrim is when it took off. Everybody knew Elder Scrolls then. It was it was Skyrim. It wasn't Elder Scrolls. You know, it's almost like the name overtook the real name.
You know? But this one is Morrowind.
Morrowind.
So, this is basically the start of the current formula that Bethesda has been writing since 2002.
Yes.
So, you are a nameless prisoner having these weird prophetic dreams that you don't know what they mean, but that's not important. Nope. You have to take a census. You have been taken to the island of Vardenfell on the country of Morrowind, of the Dark Elves, and you're just plopped into this world, and you're just told, hey, go explore, do quests. And and it's such a big interconnected world. Like, not as big as the second game, Daggerfall, which has a randomly generated 2 countries. And
it's the size giant.
It's the size of the United Kingdom, or no, just of England. And no other game, I think, has ever come close to that size.
Yeah, that's just silly. I appreciate what that was, though. That's just
the ambition of it.
Incredible, yeah. Old Bethesda just couldn't really be beat in terms of ambition. But,
well,
we might have actually just talked about the birth of Monolith Soft. Monolith, if anything, is ambitious, but...
But yeah, so the thing that I like about Morrowind that still makes it stand out from something like even Oblivion or Skyrim is that it does not hold your hand at all.
Nope.
So, like, as soon as you leave the starting town, as you're walking along, like, you're not given any quest markers, you're just told to go to this city, and you're just given a vague direction. So you can follow the path, and there's actually, everything is signposted, literally. Like, it says, this way is this town, this way is this city, this way is the fort. And you have a map, but it doesn't, like, really show you locations. You have to find them on your own. And you have to find them on your own before you can even fast travel to them later. There's no specific build the game really wants you to deal with. It's just you build up your skills as you play the game. And you don't just go through and, like, just... You can't do everything in this game. You actually get locked out of certain guilds. Like, if you go for the Thieves Guild, you can't go through, like, one of the other guilds and stuff like that. And you can't blaze through the main story either. Like, the NPCs will tell you, look, I don't feel comfortable giving you a job of this magnitude. Go out there and gain some experience. So you're forced to, like, pick a guild, to explore, to find new items, and get better gear and stuff. And it does it without holding your hand. Like, you have to remember things, where things are, and who to talk to. It's freeing, in a way. You know, it's like I appreciate Oblivion and Skyrim for like giving me the markers so that way I don't get as lost. But
Yeah.
I miss that aspect of like being responsible for myself in this world. You know, where I can literally go out there and do anything. Like you leave the town immediately at the start, and a wizard just immediately falls from the sky screaming and dies in front of you as he hits the ground. You can loot his corpse, and then it says, "Oh yeah, so I just invented this new spell called Featherfall." And it's like, I should use this before my levitate goes out, and you just get to learn Featherfall, but your magic skill isn't good enough. So you're like, oh, well, I want to get down to the bottom of maybe this canyon. Well, level up one of your magic skills, and eventually you'll be able to use it. And it's a really hands-off experience, and the story itself really touches on mythology, what it means, what godhood actually means, and what prophecy actually entails, like, and the ramifications about it. It's probably the best story I think Bethesda has ever created.
Ooh.
And I'm not a big fan of Bethesda stories. I like, or at least their main stories. I love their side content more than the main content. But this main story, I think, is their best effort.
Okay.
So
that's a good way to,
So you can get it on Steam. It's usually on sale quite a bit. I think it's only like $20 or $10 usually. Buy it and you can play it. There's plenty of mods to bring it up to modern standards if that's holding you back. And yeah, it's a phenomenal game in my opinion. Still holds up. It's a little clunky. It's from 2002 obviously, but still, give it a shot if you love Skyrim and are tired of all the bugs and shenanigans that Starfield has been known for. So,
yeah, and new Bethesda. If you really just want to experience more of what you enjoy from Skyrim and Oblivion.
Exactly. Anything you want to add about Morrowind?
Like I said, unfortunately, this one I didn't get to hands-on play.
Okay.
So, yeah. I don't want to sound like a complete imbecile.
No, you're good. But anyway, so we'll go into the rapid fire then. So what about Warcraft 3, Reign of Chaos? Do you know anything about this?
Nope, it's all you.
Okay. So it is an RTS that really sets up the world of... oh god, Azeroth. I almost forgot the actual world it takes place in. The most important part of Warcraft. It's an RTS that sets up a lot of plot details that would eventually go into World of Warcraft to help make World of Warcraft probably the best MMO at the time, and arguably you could probably say the best MMO ever.
Yeah, that is one you could absolutely argue for.
Yeah, so it sets up, you know, the story of the Lich King. It sets up the story of all these other important characters. I'm not big into Warcraft all that much. I just know that this is the stepping stone to greatness, and without this and the modding scene around it, we wouldn't have gotten Dota or other games like Dota and all that stuff. It's available, I think, on Battle.net, but I think it's only the reforged version, the crappy version.
Oh, why does this keep happening?
Because it's Bethesda, Activision, Microsoft now.
Oh, well, that's the three of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
Yeah, might as well throw in EA, and we would have that in gaming. But yeah, it's available if you want to try it. The next one is Neverwinter Nights. Do you know anything about this one?
Sega, right?
BioWare.
No, Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of... what am I thinking of?
I'm not sure what you're thinking of.
What the heck am I thinking of?
Oh, Nights
into Dreams.
Yes.
That's what I'm thinking of. Nights into Dreams.
That's okay.
See, I like glance aside. I'm like, Nights. Okay, yeah, I know Nights.
He's a funny looking jester dude.
Didn't we already talk about that?
Well, for those who've been keeping up, we did talk about a game called Neverwinter Nights in 1991, but that was an MMO for AOL. This is actually a BioWare game where it's their first 3D game, and the big thing that sets it apart from other games is that it's a very modular game, and it came packed in with a construction kit where you could actually make your own RPGs in this game. And that's the thing.
Always fun.
Yeah, so you make your own modules and everything. No. And if you master the scripting language, you can actually make some really cool stuff. This game is still supported. There's an enhanced edition that's out now. Which fixes up an awful lot of incompatibility issues because it's very hard to play this Microsoft Windows XP game on Windows 10 and 11. You can't hardly do it.
Yeah,
but we
only rarely get stuff like that preserved and updated anymore.
But all the content from back in the day, like all the premium modules and a lot of the fan-made stuff has been remade, and you can actually download it for the enhanced edition.
That's
which,
good.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's on sale a lot too. Like for this holiday sale, I think it went down to like it'll go down to $10.
Wow.
So yeah, for endless hours of content, pick it up. It's good. And next, we're going to talk about Battlefield 1942.
Heard of Battlefield?
Yeah, you heard of Battlefield and how it's not doing that great?
Well, this is when it starts, at least.
Right, so this is the start of it. I don't know much about Battlefield. All I know is that this is like mainly a multiplayer game with up to 64 people, and it's got like a giant battlefield. That literally is the namesake of the whole thing.
Yeah.
It's basically, it's Call of Duty before Call of Duty.
Right.
And I think at this stage in the game, it's a really fun multiplayer game, which were really big at the time with stuff like we mentioned before, Unreal Tournament and Quake 3. Again, I don't know much about it, but
it happened. There you go. We talked about it.
Yeah.
We mentioned it.
So the last one I want to rapid fire real quick is a game called Divine Divinity.
We love the redundancy on this show.
Redundancy.
Did I stutter stutter?
I said, boy, I said it's a redundancy. I tell you, it repeats itself. Oh God, I'm losing my mind. Anyway, not the point.
No.
So
last PC game.
Yeah, last PC game. The main reason I wanted to include this is because it's the first game put out by a studio called Larian, and if that name sounds familiar, you might have heard of a game called Baldur's Gate 3 that just dropped this year. Released out of early access and become the de facto RPG of the year for a lot of people.
Yeah, some people are actually calling it their game of the year, which I can see that.
Yeah.
If that's your kind of thing.
Yeah. If you're into turn-based tactical RPGs like this.
Yeah.
But strangely enough, Divine Divinity is actually a Diablo clone in a lot of ways. So it takes place from a top-down isometric point of view. You click on monsters, you kill them. However, it has a lot bigger emphasis on story, on character, and on exploration rather than just diving into the dungeon and getting loot and killing demons. The story is very tongue-in-cheek. It doesn't take itself exactly seriously. Like one of the first quests you go on deals with, you have to deal with some skeletons, and they're having... two of them are having an argument about, like, why are we here? What is the purpose of our existence? As they're saying this with the clacking jaws in the background. Back in that day, like, even then, Larian had, like, a very tongue-in-cheek aspect to their storytelling. And it only has gotten, like, better writing and better visuals and better gameplay as time has gone on. You can still pick this up on Steam and GOG.com for, like, $4 or $5. Pick it up and give it a shot. There's mods to be able to make it play better in the modern day too. Another
arcade.
Yeah, the arcade is still a thing.
Yep.
Somehow, but hey, I'm not complaining.
Yeah, we're gonna shock you later with a Game Boy Color game.
Yeah, right. But I just wanted to quickly mention Soul Calibur 2.
Yes.
It originated in the arcade this year, but I would argue that it's better known for its console port.
Oh,
which
yes.
looks and plays better, runs better. Ports, yes. Ports is precious. Where we have the version on GameCube, on the Xbox, and PlayStation 2. And the thing that sets each version apart is the crossover character comes with each.
Yes, there's an exclusive crossover with each version to make sure that you're buying all them consoles, kids.
That's right. Hey, so if you have the GameCube version, which I do and did, love that game, it came with Link as a fighter. He's not the best fighter in that roster.
Never saw that coming.
No. He's not the best fighter in that roster, but he's there.
Yeah, whatever.
The PS2 gets Heihachi from the Tekken series, which, again, I wouldn't have seen coming, but, there's a bear that you can play as in Tekken, so whatever.
Yeah, it's a weird series. Oh, shoot.
And then in the Xbox version, what blows my mind is that Spawn is the character.
The comic book character.
Yeah, the Todd McFarlane character. It's like, okay, sure. We can do that. Good for you, Xbox players. Yep. You edgy boys, you.
Yeah.
Spawn. Builds on the first game phenomenally well.
Yeah.
And I just think it's a fun time, especially with the crossover characters. That's why I love it so much. Anything you wanted to add?
It's really just known for the crazy crossover characters. It's still good. It's not like it's a bad game or anything. It's mostly, we're noting it here because it was a big thing this year because of the fact that, like, you could play with Link, you could play with Heihachi, not at the same time, of course.
Right.
Though let's not make the game too good.
Right, and even the HD versions that came out on Xbox and PlayStation 3 later didn't have all of the characters in it. You couldn't have Link. But it was just weird because Nintendo is so protective of its IP that it's like, wow, there's a Link in my fighting game.
I know.
That's freaking
That's
amazing.
really weird. Other characters were allowed to beat Link.
Yeah.
That's really what that was. You know, it's like, I believe Capcom had like a similar thing in Smash Brothers. They wanted to like no character to be able to beat Mega Man or something like that.
Yeah, which is like, okay,
Like,
whatever.
alright, so you're okay.
Anything else you wanted to add?
Not really, no.
Alright, so now we're finally moving into the portable side of things.
Yeah, and since I actually screwed up the order of these, and I mentioned that we'd be talking about a Game Boy Color, let's talk about that one first.
Alright.
We'll do a little Game Boy Advantage after this to end this, but Game Boy Color. Yes, there's a Game Boy Color game that comes out this year that's actually important. Have you heard of Shantae?
Oh my god, have I ever heard of Shantae?
Yeah, so Way Forward is now making a really well-made Game Boy Color game. Now, it's kind of a shame that it's on the Game Boy Color so late. It's a lot of... I know there was also, recently, I think Limited Run Games was helping them bring back a Game Boy Advance sequel to this.
Yes, that got canned because of time. Yep.
Well, of course, and look at what had happened to them previously. How do you convince an investor that you're worth it when this happens to you? When you release a Game Boy Color game, no matter how good it is, how quality it is, it's just not the time for that.
Right, because I think this one was stuck, like, because they couldn't get a distributor. Like, the game was done, but they couldn't get it out in time, so... And to convert it to a Game Boy Advance title would have been too much for them at the time.
Yeah, it wouldn't have... Yeah, you would have to basically rebuild the game.
But speaking of the game itself, so this is a 2D side-scrolling adventure platformer.
Yeah, some people call it a Metroidvania. I wouldn't
I
go that far.
would argue that it's more of a Wonder Boy game.
Yeah, I'd see that.
The whole thing is you are
There we go again. Not calling a genre just another game name, but
yeah,
it's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, like I said, it's an adventure side-scrolling game. But you play Shantae, who is a half-genie who lives in the town, who is the genie and protector of a place called Scuttletown. When the evil pirate Risky Boots comes in with her Tinklebats.
Yeah, and bouncy chest on the Game Boy Color.
That's important. That's very important. And
you need your Game Boy Color girls to dance in skimpy bikinis and have their boobs bounce around.
And have them wide hips, yo.
Yeah, I'm not kidding.
And so...
This is a part of Way Forward's aesthetic.
Yeah.
Anymore, though, this eventually it would become the company that revitalized a lot of games we thought were dead forever.
Yeah, like the Advance Wars series in recent memory.
And Contra. We just got a Contra from them. There's a lot of stuff that Way Forward has done.
Risky Boots comes into town, she steals a steam engine, she's going to use it to find 4 MacGuffins in order to take over the world. You gotta stop her.
Yep.
And you do that by exploring an overworld.
Revisiting other places.
Going through dungeons, getting upgrades in the form of dances, which transform you into different animals.
Yes.
Like a monkey, an elephant, a bird, and I forget what the 4th one is.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
A mermaid or something? You could swim.
Yeah, I think it was a mermaid. Yeah. So, and you get to revisit different areas with those animal powers. You have to put in a button combination in order to be able to perform the dance to do that.
Right.
I like the game well enough. The thing that kills it for me is just even before you leave a screen, enemies immediately respawn.
Yeah, it's one of those NES kind of rules where they're back instantaneously, like Ninja Gaiden. That's what makes Ninja Gaiden so hard. You try and clear the path for you to run forward, and the enemies are already back, and you gotta figure it out anyway.
It's not like even Metroid 1, where you clear out a room and it's just cleared out.
Yeah, and Metroid 1 would even save it. I think if you moved like a screen or like at least one screen over sometimes. Yeah, I'm not positive on that, but I know the other ones would.
That's the thing that kind of breaks the game for me. However, there actually is a Switch remake / port of the game that surprisingly what blew my mind is one of my favorite YouTubers that I watch on YouTube, Modern Vintage Gamer.
It's not me?
He
doesn't watch me.
You're special to me, Alex. It's okay. Don't tell him, but
at least it's you know, he's the idiot. Remember, we have previously established
Oh,
See footnote.
I freely admit I am not a very smart person.
Anyway, let's go talk
Speak for
about
yourself,
our
home dog.
pixelated
Jiggle
waifu
physics.
jiggle physics.
But Modern Vintage Gamer actually was responsible for the port to Switch.
That's cool.
And I thought that, yeah, and it's actually a very good port too. So you can still play it. Like, I had a version of it on the 3DS before the eShop died back in the day.
Yeah.
But it's easily gotten now. So I would say...
Well, shifty eyes, it's easily gotten now.
Well, on Switch, you can get it on eShop and physical.
This is where I was supposed to go. Fendrano Ghost.
I see.
So yeah, I haven't beaten this one. I've beaten Half Genie Hero, which is kind of like them doing it again, but with the later characters and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, they're good. Yeah, the Shantae games are good.
Shantae games are very good.
And in fact, the most important thing, though, I think, is the fact that we get Way Forward now.
Yeah, like they were a thing, but they weren't exactly a commodity until this.
Yeah.
And even then, it took a while for it to catch on.
It really took them a while.
But if that, anything else, or shall we move on?
Yeah, Game Boy Advance, and we can finally talk about the games of the year. It's a big year, if you couldn't tell by the length of this video. Holy crap, Zach, I'm sorry.
That's alright.
Hey, well, you were complaining that they didn't give you enough hours at work this week? Well, guess who is giving you those hours? If only I could pay you.
Buddy, I never even asked for money. What are you talking about?
Yeah, well, luckily, because we don't make anything here.
So...
Anyway, enough of our problems. Game Boy Advance is cool. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Game Boy Advance is cool, and it's still cool even in 2002.
So you know how we're playing a Metroid game?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Metroid was dead up to this point.
For 8 years.
Yeah, we had nothing up to this point. It was Super Metroid was the last we ever saw of this series. And then on the same day, much less the same year, we get a new 2D Metroid as well, continuing the story of Super. And that is Metroid Fusion.
Metroid Fusion.
Which actually had crossover stuff with Metroid Prime.
Oh, yeah, it did.
I don't know if it's in the remaster, actually.
No.
No, it's not?
I don't think there's a way to get it unless if it's like a new
I don't know. That's something we'll have to fact check later. But
yeah.
But yeah, so Metroid Fusion is... Now, I have a physical of this downstairs in the box.
Too.
Yeah, I love this game.
I adore this game.
Yes, it's... okay. So it's not my favorite of the 2D Metroids, but, like... Here, the 2D Metroids to me are all, like, masterpiece level, and then some are like, they're really good. There's a couple little things I think could make them better. I think this game could go for a Samus Return style remake, and then I'll be like, you did it, it's perfect again.
You're
like,
done.
You done it, it's beautiful. Beautiful, I love it.
Beautiful.
Because the idea is there. And it would absolutely influence what would become Metroid Dread, and probably why Metroid Dread took so long, and that is with the new implementation of a character that basically Mr. X follows you around, or I should probably say a nemesis follows you around.
Yeah.
Or should I actually say Scissors Man from Clock Tower, if you got the informed people will call it the Scissor Man.
Yes.
And that is the SAX.
Yep.
Basically, there are X-parasites. You find out in this game that the Metroids, now being extinct, they were created by the Chozo to make sure they could keep another more threatening alien species in check, and those are the X. And Samus has to go on a journey to basically try and defeat the X-parasites, and she herself gets possessed by them. And the only way that she can be revitalized from her possession is by being injected with Metroid DNA. Which eventually will turn her into the last living Metroid. But in this one, that means that an X-Parasite has copied Samus, and that is this SAX that is patrolling a Galactic Federation ship, which was basically trying to recreate planet Zebes. And turn it all into a bioweapon, showing that even the Galactic Federation were no better than the space pirates.
Basically, yeah. No, and that's a really fun turnaround as well. That, you know,
I did review this as well, so you can check that out.
Yeah. The thing
But yeah, it's a cool turn of events. Yeah, like, the good guys are... There are no good guys.
Yeah, right.
It's all perspective.
Although, didn't it kind of turn out that in the Japanese original, they weren't exactly truly the bad guys?
Supposedly it was another sect of them. They were trying to move it, but...
Yeah. Or maybe it's just some retconning in the later
Mild
games.
retconning, yeah.
But, But regardless, yeah, there were certain people within the government that really wanted to take the space pirates' ideas, and yeah.
Yes.
And Samus is being used as a pawn, just like Solid Snake is in Metal Gear Solid.
Yeah, it's very similar.
And so, this was honestly my introduction to the Metroid series.
Ooh.
Like, I didn't have a Super Nintendo. I started out as a PlayStation kid, so I never played stuff like Mario,
Metroid in general, or Metroid 2D?
No, just in general.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so I never had a chance to
Good
play
place to
that.
start, too, because
Yes.
it's
very
a good
guided.
transition. It's very guided.
Yeah.
And that's actually the reason why I think it's a little weaker than the others. I prefer if you couldn't tell from the Super Metroid experience, I prefer the quiet, allowing the player to figure it out for themselves by breadcrumbing them along in very clever fashion, as opposed to Adam, the new AI character, who will lock the doors with you, and you have to interact with him, and you have to talk with him, and he will tell you exactly where to go, and he will mark it on your map of what you need to do.
Yep, exactly. Which for me, as a...
if you don't know what Metroid is, this is... Who cares? Yeah, like, nobody would mind whatsoever.
No, and like I said, as a kid, like back in 2002, 2003, whenever I got it...
It's helpful.
Yeah, I was in middle school at the time, so my dumb self would have been like, yeah,
oh,
sure,
I
whatever.
didn't realize I woke up the baby she-gots.
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, and that's the thing, like, that's... Because it's segmented into 6 different sectors, the biologic space labs.
Yep.
So you have, like, the place that's supposed to be Zebes, you have a cold place, you have, like, all these different...
hot place.
Yeah. You have just an excuse
and then
to make
weird
these different...
experiments, things like Nightmare.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, God, that's probably the best thing to come out of that game. I love Nightmare.
Oh, God, yeah, with his gravity melting technology.
That fight is scary.
Yeah.
That's another good turn. Like, Metroid previously was, like, isolated horror. This one is straight up horror. There are whole segments where they know you're going to cross, because it's so linear, they know exactly where you're going to go, and they know that you're going to pass by a certain segment.
Yeah.
So they're going to script it to either have the SAX pursue you in a segment, have something shake in the background, and the background changes. It's tense. You don't know what's happening. You are alone on this alien spaceship.
With your only companion being an artificial intelligence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's pretty freaky.
Right, because no one else can get on this colony with you. They'll just get infected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you are the only one who can do this because it's infected by the X-parasites.
Mm-hmm. Now, I was going to say, like you said, it's pretty linear. And upon replays, especially when you know what you're doing, it can be really annoying.
Yeah.
Which is understandable, but...
There's some things that really bother me. Like, it's actually possible to lock yourself out of the entire game if you play too far, and I was actually intentionally playing it at one point to backtrack all at once so that I would pick up all the goodies in one fell swoop.
That's right.
And accidentally forced myself to have to beat the final boss of the game with the bare minimum requirements.
Yeah,
which
the game is bad about locking you out of specific zones.
Yeah, it is very, very linear.
And at towards the end, like once you think you can get that victory lap, it locks you into a final, like, destined course against the final boss.
And you don't know you're doing it, which is most of games that have like a point of no return, it's very clear, and they will tell you. Especially in RPGs, they'll be like, "I sure hope that we've done everything we needed to do before we cross this, obligatory door that is, not different than any other door, but just saying, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This would be a point of no return."
Like Cloud outright saying in Final Fantasy VII, it's like there's no going back once we enter the Northern Crater at the end. So it's like, oh yeah, no, this game doesn't do that, unfortunately.
No,
but
it's still a very good Metroid game.
Oh, absolutely,
yeah.
And it fostered my absolute adoration of this series,
yes.
And it made me want to get the game we're playing now, Metroid Prime, on GameCube when I eventually got a GameCube for Christmas, and
it's great to see that side by side. So you really came in at a great time to see one of the best 2D and I'd still say the best 3D. One they've ever done, which unfortunately was the first. You never really want to see the best of a series do it at the outset, but Metroid Prime, I don't want to keep going back to this, it's so good at what it's doing that, it's... All the other games are just kind of different takes on this.
Exactly.
And we'll probably talk about them when we get to them.
Probably.
But anyway.
Anything else you wanted to add about Fusion before we talk about the
I
big
reviewed
handheld?
it. I reviewed it, so you can take a look. And I also reviewed the next big thing to talk about in here, too. But you know what? Hey, here's a great moment from Metroid Fusion. I'm sorry, Metroid Prime.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, when it zooms over. Yeah.
Yes, because you have been isolated this whole time that we have playing today, and you finally have an inclination that Meta Ridley is indeed here, and you are supposed to be pursuing and finding the space pirates here, because up to this point you've not seen anything.
Yep. You finally get another glimpse of the space dragon pirate.
Yeah, the reason you're here. And he also kind of teases you into which direction you need to be going next. It's all that brilliant breadcrumbing. You're supposed to be... you think you're chasing Ridley? You're not actually chasing Ridley. You're going to the next point, you can use the boost ball.
That's right.
These games are brilliant, Zach.
These games are absolutely
They're brilliant.
well-designed. So, shall we go ahead and just rip off the Band-Aid?
Oh my god. How about before we do that, we do a very quick rapid fire of a Game Boy Advance game?
Yes.
We're going to say the sequel to Golden Sun happens this year.
Yep, Golden Sun, The Lost Age.
Yeah, it's really cool. I wish we got more. This is the end of Golden Sun, I think?
We got the DS game, but after that...
Right, yeah.
Now, quick funny...
For Game Boy Advance, it's the conclusion
now,
of it.
quick funny story. I actually played this before I ever played Golden Sun 1.
Oh, that's weird.
Golden Sun The Lost Age, it's a direct sequel to Golden Sun 1.
Right.
So it's like you're playing the game from the villain side of things. So, like, right after the kerfuffle at the Venus Lighthouse, you immediately pick up playing as Jenna and everyone else as they try to get out of the lighthouse before it's activated. And then you just completely explore the rest of the world, and you actually see the whole entire story of Golden Sun, since it was meant to be one single cartridge game. But, no, didn't
way
happen.
too ambitious. That's kind of like me playing Sonic Adventure Battle 2 from the villain's perspective first.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. But the thing is, it still plays almost exactly like Golden Sun 1. There's not that many changes between each. Visually, it looks exactly the same, which is, like, fine, whatever.
Yeah.
It's a really fun game, and it's a lot more open than the first game is. The first game is open in some areas, but you actually explore literally the rest of the world in this one. So, it's a really fun game. I like it a lot. It was another one of those games that really got me hooked on RPGs for life. It was between
the Golden Sun series is a great one for introducing someone to RPGs.
Yeah, which I think you could argue about the DS game, which I don't want to talk about when we get to it. It's a very easy game, and it's a decent enough RPG, but it's not a good Golden Sun game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So, which is the sad part, and that one ends on a cliffhanger, which we'll never get this answer to.
Yeah, I keep hoping, like, Way Forward might do something with that, but...
That'd be kind of cool, like, if they remastered and literally stitched both games together.
Actually
really
recreated
cool.
what it was supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, if they were going to be the gaming heroes of fixing games, I would love to see them fix Xenogears, stitch that game back together.
Or actually, stitch it back together and actually finish.
That's what I meant. But anyway,
Let's
Zach
rip off that Band-Aid now.
there is a big thing that happens this year, and if it wasn't Kingdom Hearts, that was the big thing that all the kids were talking about on the playgrounds. It was Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire.
Ba-da-da-da-da.
Wow. Okay, as I mentioned, I did review this, but this game... Whoa. And I will still say, to this day, this is the biggest leap in Pokemon everything. The graphics, the gameplay, everything that we have seen yet. This game, oh my goodness. Of course, we're jumping to the Game Boy Advance. And the first two games were exclusively on the Game Boy. / Game Boy Color. And so it's not like we saw much of a change up to that point. It was really like, okay, what new Pokemon did you add?
It was content additions and changes.
And though we do get an enormous new Pokedex, and the Pokedex that we had in Gen 2 was just an addition of 100 new Pokemon.
Yes.
Gen 3 is like adding another Kanto on top of all of that.
Right. Now, the thing that I appreciate about that game, and especially as a kid at the time, like, I wasn't always in it for the collecting aspect of Pokemon. Like, I loved doing it, but I never really had people to trade with. So I was just in it just for, like, the story, the exploration, and, like, the story that the environment can tell. You know, like in Pokemon Silver and Gold with the Aleph ruins and all that.
And boy, Hoenn is such an amazing world to explore.
I love it. I love the fact that it's like an
beautiful.
archipelago that you can just go between everything.
There's so many different biomes in this place, and they're all so interesting and not things that you
Yeah.
normally see. There's like a ruined sandstorm area. There is a
Yeah.
rainforest.
There's an underwater cavern system.
An ashy volcano bed. And it's not like the fire world you would expect. I mean like ashes raining down, and people will actually like turn the ash into like glass.
Yes.
And
yes,
you
yes,
can
yes.
create things with it. It's so smart. There's so many things like that that make Gen 3 just brilliant with how it's designed. Man, and of course, new ways to traverse. You can dive underwater.
Because see, what I was trying to go for with my thing was that where I wasn't as big into the collection aspect, we didn't have all 300 and some odd Pokemon.
We did not.
Ruby and Sapphire.
Because this was at a very important moment where you could not trade your Pokemon from the Game Boy to the Game Boy Advance. This is one of the rare disconnects.
So we have just the Hoenn Dex in this one, which is fine.
With a Hoenn Dex, we should be clear, does not just mean the new Hoenn Pokemon.
No, there are creatures from Silver and Gold and Red and Blue as well in this one. Yes, you're not just locked into just the new creatures. There is still some familiarity to like ground you into this world.
You can still get Pikachu. You can still find old
Pidgey
classic ones.
and all that stuff. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know about Pidgey.
Is Pidgey not in there?
I don't think so.
Oh, Swallow or whatever. Not
Swallow. They have replacements for the birds and the bugs.
Right. So it's still got familiar archetypes.
Yes, you will still get your butterfly in the beginning. You'll learn about evolution, so it can still comfortably be your first Pokemon.
And be an excellent example.
Yes, yes, and it's one of the best ones, and some would probably say it might still be the best Pokemon.
Yeah, I've heard arguments for Black and White, and I've heard
Black and White's a very good one too.
But
yeah.
if nothing else, this would be a very, very close second. I would probably think. Because after this, I dropped off of Pokemon.
I did as well, but I think that's not this game's fault. I think that was Diamond and Pearl mostly. Not enjoying what I was seeing for the direction of the series. And it wasn't even the fact that, I had a DS. More people had DSs than Game Boy Advances. The DS actually did quite well.
It took me a while to actually get a DS. I think it wasn't until 2006.
I think the DS in general took a while to really start selling like crazy.
But once it did,
it took off, yeah.
I'm not sure how you'd be able to. I'm not sure how you'd be able to play it today, honestly.
Ruby and Sapphire. Well, you can't, and unfortunately, that's you can't even play that, Zach.
Can't even play.
You can't even play that. So yeah, if you wanted to play
Sapphire.
Ruby and Sapphire today, Pokemon Company is not allowing you to play them on NSO. God no. And then of course, if you're not allowed to play them on NSO, you can't even play them and stream the Ruby and Sapphire remakes. Which we might get to them when we get to them, but they're not even close to as good as what those original games were. They're more so trying to do X and Y on Hoenn, which is not the same game.
Oh, because they have the Omega Evolutions.
You have the Mega Evolutions, you have the primal versions of Kyogre and Groudon. They're trying to sell you on that stuff, and it's not the same game. And that's a shame, because you kind of break the design of Hoenn by doing that kind of stuff. By giving the player Latios/Latios after like their third or fourth gym badge. I'm not kidding, because they are how you fly in the game.
Why?
And you actually get them in your party too.
What if I don't want them to be my fly?
It doesn't matter.
Nope,
you don't have a choice.
Okay. Fine.
No, I think you can teach fly to something else, but they turn into like a generic nothing, fly into the air and pick you up and teleport you. But if you actually want to do the new gimmick of the game, you need to use we're not talking about that version of the game, but still, that's the example that I'm trying to give here of like, it's functionally not the same. No! Oh, that's such a long way back. I gotta travel now. Oh,
nuts.
I was about to get my double jump. There's actually a trick way to get the double jump as your first pickup, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that glitch works in this.
Yeah, because didn't it involve, like, strafe jumping or something like that?
Yeah, if you target something with L, then you can jump by strafing around them. We kind of implied that earlier in Metroid Prime. You could use that to kind of exploit the game's physics to let you jump way farther than you should, and you would be able to reach that ledge that I was just trying to jump to.
Yeah, because the game's not calculating that properly, or it is, but it's just in such a strange way that it's like, oh, you have to be over here.
It's kind of like, you know, in Ocarina of Time, if you strafe jump with Link, you go faster than you run, and it's the fastest way to travel across Hyrule Field. Yeah, so it's that kind of thing, except it lets you jump slightly farther.
Exactly.
So, anyway, yeah, Pokemon Gen 3 is a wonderful game. It's probably the best thing that you can play on the Game Boy Advance, and that is saying something.
It's one of the best.
Yeah, it is the big RPG for the system. I think this is when Pokemon kind of... Now, I know in terms of sales, Pokemon has slowly been dipping down over time, and that's kind of to be expected. It was an enormous media sensation at the beginning, and of course they're never going to recapture that again unless they figure out what that formula was that made it work, and boy, do they not understand in modern day.
Yeah, see, it'd be easier for them to make... I'm
so bad at games!
Okay.
I missed the jump again for those of you just listening.
What I was going to say was, no, it'd be easier for them to create a time machine and just go back in time and just recoup and just make more money with that particular set of circumstances again.
Well, we'll get to it in Black and White. That's basically them thinking, what if we tried to do Gen 1 again and just make a brand new Pokedex, a brand new world? Hoenn really feels like that, but it also has some of the old familiarity into it. And that's, I think, what makes it a little safe, but also very freeing and experimental. And I think that's why the game feels so good.
I think so, yeah. And like I said,
it's learning so much.
I didn't really play... Diamond and Pearl or Black and White or anything after Ruby and Sapphire. It wasn't until Sword and Shield that I tried it again.
Oh, boy, I'm sorry.
Like I said...
How many times have I apologized for
Sword and Shield?
For you and Sword and Shield?
I don't know. There was aspects of it I did like, honestly.
Those aspects, I think, if you'd played the other games, you'd realize they're just dumbed-down versions of better mechanics that you're not getting.
I mean, from my perspective at least, yeah. All right, let's concentrate.
I can do this jump, I swear. It's not that hard.
Oh,
what if
I actually don't you? Yeah.
I can do it.
We can do this.
I don't. Oh. Yay! Okay, I made it. I finally got my double jump. Why is the hardest jump in the game the one that gets you the double jump? I mean, let's be real.
It's the last jump test.
Yeah, it must be. Anyway, oh my goodness, 2002 is huge.
Yeah, I mean, we thought 2001 was a golden year. This is a close runner-up.
Yeah, especially for Nintendo. Especially for Nintendo. These are Nintendo's biggest IPs, and they're all getting enormous entries.
Because we talked a little bit before we recorded how this was basically the golden year for Nintendo. Because I don't think we've ever gotten anything like this year again when it comes to simultaneous releases of Metroid, Zelda, and Mario.
And Pokemon. And they're good, too. It's not like, we're getting a Pokemon that comes out and it's extremely glitchy, and people are complaining that they can't play it.
Well, to be fair, the early games were glitchy, but not to the point where...
Not like it's unplayable.
No. Yeah. Right, exactly.
Yeah, glitchy as in, like, haha, I can surf on Cinnabar Island's east side and some funny stuff shows up.
Some funny
not
tower
like,
pixels make some noise.
Not like I literally can't explore this area because the game is so laggy.
Right, exactly.
No,
I know.
That's a shame. Sad. But it's not like Breath of the Wild, Super Mario Odyssey... Actually, those did come out the same year.
I think so.
But it's not like we got those on top of getting Metroid Dread, and Pokemon didn't suck that year.
Yeah, like if we actually got Metroid Prime 4 when we were supposed to. Yeah,
right, yeah, if that all happened at the same time. And a big change here that makes this not as memorable as if that had happened, just imagine that it did for a moment, for the Switch games. The big difference is that almost everyone in this day and age who's interested in video games has a Nintendo Switch.
Yep.
Go back in 2002, you cannot say the same about the GameCube.
No.
Unfortunately. Even though it is a wonderful system, it's just not the same thing.
Yep, 120 some odd million consoles for PlayStation 2, 38 or 40 some odd million consoles for Xbox, and like 28 to 30 some odd million for the GameCube.
It's low.
Yeah.
But the install base for these games is very high.
Which,
that's good.
Oh yeah, exactly. So, did we want to go ahead and get into our favorites and influentials?
Yeah, so, another thing that was interesting that we did last year, and before, it's the same kind of thought of what we do for the influentials. If it is 2002, right now,
Yes.
what are you buying?
I think...
Because this is tough. Because assuming you're already trying to convince your family that you want a game console, and it was already tough enough trying to explain to them you really wanted a GameCube, on top of the PS2, if that was your excuse for getting a DVD player, right?
Yeah.
And because all this stuff is coming out of the GameCube, and you really want to play it because you had the N64, and you want to see these new games because they look so good.
But you can't tell them that this is a DVD player because it won't play DVDs.
Nope, it intentionally plays those dinky little discs on purpose. It makes it even harder for you to try and crack into it.
I hate that
Nintendo.
so freaking much. Yeah. Regardless, though, what I asked for, well, I wouldn't be able to get away with it as a kid, but say if I travel back in time...
Of course you want to buy and play all of it, but like...
Oh, absolutely. But for me personally, my favorite game of the year that I eventually got to play, Resident Evil Remake.
Resident Evil. It's weird it's a remake that's actually your game of the year. And we're playing a game that came out this year that is also a remake, sort of, kind of, remaster.
Yeah,
some people actually, I've heard some people say that this is their game of 2023.
Right, well, I mean, I guess if you never played it when it originally
Metroid
came out
Prime.
in 2002, you know, that's understandable.
Yeah.
Because I never played the original PlayStation version at the time. It's only recently that I've dabbled in it. For me, it's just the fact that it was like the game that really helped me to properly get into survival horror. Like I said, I had that friend who was huge into survival horror games, especially Resident Evil.
Yeah.
Shout out to you, buddy. I can't thank you enough, because he was the one who also introduced me to stuff like Silent Hill, Fatal Frame, and all this other stuff. And this game, at the time and still to this day, legitimately scared me. Like, there were times where I'm like, I really want to play this. I'm so
It's good
enchanted.
Atmosphere.
Yes.
And not so much like cheap scares, which a lot of horror games today, that's all they do.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
it's
right.
like, can I jump out and just like,
It's that slow buildup of
make
tension.
the streamer yell and make the thumbnail fodder.
Like Poppy's Playland or whatever.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. It's silly things. Even if you're in like a haunted area and the place is genuinely tense and scary, make the person walk really slowly and like a raccoon jumps out of a trash can and makes a loud noise.
Slenderman.
Like, you startled somebody. You did not scare them. That's
a difference,
intrinsically not the same thing. And Resident Evil, on either of its versions, I think does this well. The GameCube one does it better.
Yeah, because like, you have to think, okay, I've got this many bullets. Which zombie do I take down? Oh God, I've taken him down. I need to figure out how much fuel I have left in my canister to burn the corpse, or else it'll come back as a crimson head and be even more difficult to deal with, and a more of a drain on resources than it already has been. And just the fact that...
knife them when they're down. Make sure that they don't even get back up earlier game. And keep poking.
And just the fact that you don't know what's around the bend, especially if you're a returning player from the PlayStation version. Spencer Mansion has been rearranged, and puzzles are not the same. Plus, there's a new enemy out in like the wilderness around the mansion that you can go to that you deal with. I forget what her name is, but she's like the zombie with the sack on her head and like her hands.
I don't know if I got that far in the remake.
Okay. But she's a new character, and she actually, I'm like, you don't know when she'll strike, and it's like, oh,
that's fun.
No. That's my favorite game of the year. What about you, sir? What is your favorite game of 2002?
What do you think, Zach? I'm playing it.
I think it was Shantae.
Shantae for the Game Boy Color. No, so it's Metroid Prime.
Okay.
So if you couldn't tell, I really love Metroid, and this is just, it's rare that we see a game, as we kind of mentioned with Golden Sun, when it does something really, really clever the first time, and it makes a sequel, and more often than not, we see that sequel not really understand why the original was so good.
Exactly.
Why the design was so well thought out, and it's not just the what happened and the setting and the characters.
Yeah, why things are happening for what reason.
Yes.
Yeah.
Super Metroid is one of the most artfully designed games ever made. Trying to redo that completely from the ground up in a three-dimensional space, recontextualizing places. This room that I just went in, I completely undermined because of a new ability I had.
Yep.
That kind of stuff is genius, and it makes you feel like you're always improving, always seeing more and doing more, even though you're you're just like backpedaling over the whole map again, and
it
doing
makes
it in a
that
3D
backtracking
space.
fun in a 3D
Yes,
space.
it is. It's so fun.
Okay, no, that's perfectly understandable. I totally get it.
I have a blast with this game, even though, and I want to point this out, I get very, very nauseous playing first-person shooter games. And one of the other reasons that I like to say that this really is not a first-person shooter, if you call it one, I kind of think you don't understand what you're playing.
Or it's a misnomer, and it's just hard to categorize.
It's a safe thing to say because you are shooting things in first person. However, as I just mentioned, first-person shooter games get me very nauseous.
Right.
I have been playing it now for over an hour, and I'm fine.
Yeah, because it keeps you level. It wants you to actually pay attention to your surroundings, and it only uses the Z or the Y axis to really, like,
if I play it with the new controls with the twin stick, now I start to get a little sick, which maybe that is another reason why I wasn't a huge fan of it.
That's fair.
But yeah, playing it like this, oh wow. And even just trying to figure out what to do with the GameCube controller, oh, it's absolutely wonderful.
Yep.
So yeah, this is absolutely what I would have given my Game of the Year at the time, but in hindsight, looking back, what would you say is the most influential game that came out in 2002,
Oh
Zach?
my god. So there is
It's hard to say. There's so much.
Yeah, like the
It's
open
hard to
world
say.
of Zelda as it is
But
now.
what happened to Pokemon? And what would
happened-
Pokemon be were it not for Gen 3?
Right, exactly. Or like with Shantae, where would we be without
The game industry.
WorldSwords?
Where would we be in this industry without Monolith Soft? Yeah.
But for me personally, I think the most influential game to have come out at this time was The Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind.
I can see that.
Basically because
I can see almost anything on this list, by the way. There's
almost,
a lot.
Yeah, there's a ton.
Except for the rapid fires. There's a couple rapid fires that you could argue, but
Yeah, Eternal Darkness maybe, or even Resi Remake potentially. For me, it is Morrowind. It is the template for a modern-day open-world RPG. And it is one that I don't think Bethesda has ever really captured quite the same way. Because the other thing is, the other games are the later games are very traditional in the way that they have their setting and the stories. This is such a non-traditional game. You feel like you're on an alien planet. And so it's like, it's so strange and so not hand-holdy. And it's just the way that it deals with, like, its themes just make it an open world worth exploring and a story worth getting invested in. And it's one that Bethesda has ridden high since 2002, and now we have Elder Scrolls 6 coming, multiple re-releases of the same game of Skyrim each and every freaking time.
Yeah.
And Starfield, for what it's worth.
yeah. Well, stop releasing it when you stop buying it.
It's like, just, you've got so much
These are the
money.
people. Yeah, I know. It's a different mentality in making games.
It's
Because
not-
at this point, video games is no longer just this niche thing that you can sell little one-off things that go to a video store for people to rent. And now it's big blockbuster things that you can put a huge production into, like a movie, and make a lot of money off of it.
It
and
has
for
to
better or
succeed,
worse, that's going to change how investors and large companies look at this industry.
Yeah, and it's not the same Bethesda as it once
No.
was. That's the problem. Todd Howard is still there, but
Yeah,
for
what
it's
happened
worth.
to Todd Howard exactly?
Yeah, but regardless, I mean, good on him though. I mean, he's got to where he is, and fine, good on him. What about you? What's your most influential, do you think?
So I don't want to sound like I'm immediately biased. I do want to admit this was a tough year to
Yes,
choose.
absolutely.
This is a very tough year to decide because there are so many outstanding games that come out this year. But I have to say it's Metroid Prime.
Now, boy, I said, boy, we're talking about that there
I'm going to talk about that there redundancy. I'm going to let Metroid Prime double dip because, oh my goodness, Zach, it's so good.
So why do you think this is the most influential
Okay,
with
so
hindsight?
influential just in terms of what it did. This, okay, say that we only got Metroid Fusion and not Metroid Prime.
Okay.
I don't think Metroid comes back at all.
No.
No, we would probably never be getting the rest of the Prime games, or even seeing this later, if this isn't properly put together at this time right now with Retro Studios.
Yeah.
In this, on the GameCube, the way that it is. It's like pushing the hardware, showing people that Metroid can really be like top-of-the-line gameplay.
Uh-huh.
On top of the fact that it is still true to what Metroid was previously, getting people interested into showing them, not just the people who produced the games previous, so that Metroid Fusion is something that can even happen, even though we had to wait forever for Metroid 5. At least it happened. But I think the Prime series and Prime in general helped keep that afloat at Nintendo. And as we've mentioned previously, Metroidvanias are such a huge aspect of the modern gaming culture. And I don't know if they actually happen. Like, if certain audiences aren't exposed to them. So just because you have a game of Metroid on the Super Nintendo, and you have people who are now making fan games today, they might not have had them as a kid. So if they're not developing those things, then what were they playing as a kid? They were probably playing on the GameCube.
Exactly.
And they have to be exposed to these things, and this is just an enormous, enormous game that is just doing so much good, not just for, like, its genre, but for, like, game design itself. I am so happy to see that, like, you can make a game that's not a Doom clone. Right. You can make a game that's like it's like more of a 3D platformer, investigation, and changing how you can think about remaking a game.
Right.
You know?
Okay. Yeah.
And that kind of thought I want to see in future stuff, and we do. Fortunately, we do in new stuff that comes forward from this point. Anyway, hey, look how far I got in Metroid Prime just on memory while I'm trying to chat about everything else that came out in 2002, because Zelda. Oh my god, what would have happened to... Honestly, that's one of the last really good Zelda games. You know, we haven't... Zelda's not been the same since... I'd say the Wii. You know?
Arguably, yes. It's Twilight Princess, if nothing else.
Twilight Princess is, I would say, was the last great Zelda game. Which is sad, but... And it's also debatable by some people. Anyway... Still, 2002 was enormous, and we have to move on because, oh my goodness, we have a lot of other stuff to talk about later. These years are only going to get bigger.
Yeah, 2003 is actually going to be shaping up to be a really good year as well.
Yes, it is, and these are only going to get tougher to do, especially if a certain company doesn't want to let us actually play the games that we're talking about with you guys. We can't be playing all these... You know, we even complain sometimes like, well, it's a shame you can't play Sly Cooper, and we are saying like, hey, it's an interesting game. It's cool. It came out this year. It's a big thing. But it's impossible for you to play. I'm sorry.
Yep, unless if you have a PS3.
Yeah, or you're emulating it.
Or,
and not streaming it.
Well, if you're wanting to, Right. Well, if you're also wanting to, like, really do the, I guess, technically the right thing and actually find a legit copy, I guess. But
then you're also hunting down a PS3 on eBay.
No, but emulating at that point, no, you're absolutely right.
But also, you would even if you did that, you wouldn't be able to stream it. Well, no, it's not Nintendo. If it were Nintendo and we were saying a GameCube game, like say Wind Waker, you wouldn't be able to hunt it down legitimately on eBay and stream it because you'd have to modify your GameCube in order to have that output. So then Nintendo would be coming after you. It is topsy-turvy, I tell you.
Yeah, there's still a lot of good in it, as we're hopefully trying to show throughout the years.
Yeah, there's a lot of great stuff, and a lot of like really good people who are making really good things. And we saw this year alone 2 huge companies that are just going to make some of the best stuff that we'll ever see. And that is Monolith Soft and WayForward.
Yep,
doing some great stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
So, anyway, I am in the middle of a boss fight right now, fighting a bunch of baby she-gods, and I'm supposed to do my outro. Zach, can you read it for me?
Why, yes, I totally can, as I pull
When these guys guys die, they actually have, like, this dying breath to try and knock you out. They got me a couple times with it so far.
Such a bastard move.
Yeah, the full-on she-goth is coming in 3, 2, 1. Bust that wall down. Or is there another one here? I didn't see. Nope, there's the wall.
Okay.
Well, my timing is off.
Well, anyway.
There's a she-goth. I could scroll up and try and do it while I'm dying to a she-goth.
I got it.
All right, you got this.
I got
You got it, Zach.
So, thank you all for tuning in to this episode of HITBOX. If you enjoyed the show, you can help us keep it alive by supporting us on Patreon with the links in the show notes and in this video's description.
Give us that sultry voice.
For those of you on YouTube, remember to like and subscribe for more, and to be sure to let us know what you think of the show and what other topics you'd like to hear us cover in the future. And special thanks to all of our amazing Patreon members.
See ya.